Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1287 of the War News Stream. And we have very big news today that U.S. forces have attacked a Venezuelan vessel right on their coast. We've also seen Poland begin a massive military exercise, and also a large Russian offensive is imminent in Donetsk. And we have very big news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear significant developments today that the United States Armed Forces, under the command of U.S. Second Fleet of the United States Navy, have conducted a precise strike against a narco vessel apparently carrying illicit substances and drugs from the nation of Venezuela. This is the first official armed action taken by U.S. Armed Forces against a Venezuelan vessel or the nation of Venezuela at large. We were able to hear video and picture evidence of the attack, and we also were able to see more details being provided by the U.S. Secretary of State, while the President of the United States has continued to declare that further such actions will be made if necessary. We have also been able to hear in major news outside of that the Polish Republic is now responding in full form to the Russian Federation's Zapad 2025 military exercise, which is to take place on the area of the border near to the Suwalki Gap, within the northwestern region of Belarus, near to the city of Grodno, and along the Kaliningrad Oblast's borders. The Republic of Poland will now be deploying 30,000 troops in a month-long war game, Iron Defender 2025, to prepare the defenses against the Russian Federation's possible attempted invasion of the Suwalki Gap. We have also been able to hear that power outages are now plaguing the Gotland Island for a second time within the last 2 weeks, as the United States Navy's P-8 Poseidons continue to conduct maritime patrols within the Baltic Sea. Outside of that, we have also been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran has once again come under some sort of an attack, with air raid sirens sounding within the western regions of Iran and also within western Tehran. An explosion was seen and reported on video, although it is unknown what that specific specific target was, or what exactly caused the explosion, whether it be airstrikes or some form of sabotage by the Mossad or any other intelligence agencies operating inside the country. We have also been able to hear that further hostile action has commenced inside the Middle East against the state of Israel, with the Yemeni Houthis firing 2 ballistic missiles that appear to have fallen short and landed inside of Saudi Arabia, their motors failing mid-flight. Outside of that, in the People's Republic of China, we have also been able to hear that the Russian Federation has signed a deal today, which could be described as an attempt at an economic bailout by the People's Republic of China, allowing for a trans-Siberian pipeline to be built, connecting the two nations together, allowing for the Russian Federation to funnel their natural gas into the People's Republic of China instead of Europe. We have also been able to hear that Ukrainian armed forces have conducted counterattacks today near to the Pokrovsk front, pushing the Russians out of Udachne, while the Russian Federation is claimed to be preparing for a brand new offensive. The oil shortages are continuing to worsen in the midst of that preparation, as we have now been able to see the first oblast within the heartland of the Russian Federation, the Saratov Oblast, is now starting to become deprived of basic fuel types, and it appears that the fuel shortage may actually be sporadically popping up throughout the heartland of the Russian Federation already. We have also been able to see outside of this further developments inside of Ukraine and in the front lines, as the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted more significant drone attacks over the course of the past 24 hours. But we have a massive amount of news to cover, a huge amount of news to cover, as a matter of fact. And it does appear that as of today, the United States of America is taking official armed action against the nation of Venezuela. And we are going to be making sure to get into all of that news and all of the other major pieces and little pieces of news that we have over the course of the entire stream. And so moving on into our first and most major piece of news, we are going to be moving on into the area around the nation of Venezuela, as we have been able to hear that just earlier today, the United States of America's Navy, under the command of Second Fleet, has conducted a strike against the Venezuelan-affiliated vessel that appears to have been carrying illegal substances on board. We were able to see video footage showing this vessel being destroyed, which we can actually see in this clip right here. This appears to be some sort of a larger open-top vessel that is outfitted with the most outboard motors I've ever seen. I think that's enough outboard motors to operate the Titanic with, but they're on their way.
That's enough right there to make an Alabama redneck proud right there. Those are some nice outboards. Also, is this like a gondola? Like, what kind of boat is this?
I have no clue what this thing is. The best thing that I was thinking of, and let me check this out before I say it, and let me see this. I mean, the best thing I could probably describe it as is some type of a sampan-style boat, but a larger one. It seems to actually be something more of a normal fishing vessel, but something along the lines of this right here, just with a massive amount of outboard motors. Unfortunately, I can't say the specific type, as I'm not really familiar with commercial fishing boats, especially from Latin America, but we can see them making great speed at sea, using the massive, insane amounts of outboard propellers. But soon the speed will be stopped by an airstrike right there.
Oh,
The vessel
wow. That was a big hit.
That was a huge hit. The vessel then immediately catches on fire, and it appears that most of the crew were taken out in the midst of that strike. Nevertheless, this is the first time that we've ever been able to see any kind of official hostile action being conducted by the United States Navy against Venezuela. We were able to hear additional details at the moment. We also were able to see the footage right there of the president announcing that action. But according to the Secretary of State, as the President of the United States just announced moments ago, today the U.S. military conducted a lethal strike in the southern Caribbean against a drug vessel which had departed from Venezuela and was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization. It appears that the United States of America is now taking hostile action against actors from the nation of Venezuela that are believed to be a part of the narco-terrorist regime, as the United States is starting to call it, which is also in turn operated significantly by Nicolas Maduro, at least according to U.S. governmental claims at the moment. We were able to see that the United States Navy does have a large presence within the area, but before people even begin to ask the question, what did the United States Navy hit the small boat with? That question will most likely be unknown for now. Video footage like that shows a strike on board a vessel is incredibly hard to discern what type of munition was most likely used. It could have been an actual airstrike conducted by an aircraft within the area, or it could have been some sort of a ship-launched anti-ship weapon of some type that was operated by the U.S. Navy's surface ships itself. It may have also possibly been an anti-ship missile launched by the fast attack submarine that is also within the area as well. We just don't really know, and it's really hard to be able to say with exact certainty at this moment what exactly the vessel was hit with. However, we do understand that under Second Fleet's command right now within the U.S. Southcom region, which is also technically U.S. Second Fleet by naval definition, is a significant amount of forces that currently are in the area. From what we understand, the USS Lake Erie is currently off the coast near to the area of Columbia at the moment, while the USS Sampson, the USS Gravely, and the USS Jason Dunham also find themselves under the direct command of Second Fleet or Southcom at this moment. We also understand that the USS Newport News, a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine, is also present in the area as well, although, of course, its exact location is unknown. Also, the exact locations of all U.S. vessels within the area is currently unknown at the moment. However, we do have to pause for a brief moment because we've actually been able to get some breaking news out at this time. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so right now we're getting some breaking news out of America right now, out of the United States. We're hearing from the U.S. president. He's currently making a threat against the Chinese president Xi Jinping right now on Truth Social. And Forster, if you can pull this up on Twitter, by the way, this is a wild tweet. Give this one a read to the audience and let them hear this. It's quite wild right now. It looks like he's accusing Xi Jinping of conspiring against the United States with Kim Jong-un and Putin at this meeting. So let's take a look.
And the president's recent post is as follows. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood the United States of America gave to China in order to help it to secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America, President of the United States.
That's wild, honestly. That's wild. He's literally openly accusing Xi Jinping of conspiring, which he is. That's what we've been saying for a long time. Xi is trying to band together this new Axis powers with Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and he's finally saying it out loud, which is a good change, but also what a very pointed language right there. That's extremely pointed.
That is incredibly pointed and very direct. As a matter of fact, that's about as direct as it gets. So it now appears that we're also starting to directly state or largely claim that the People's Republic of China is conspiring against the United States' best interests. I mean, he's not lying, but at the same time, that's a pretty direct way of putting it at this point. And also, many of y'all would know, being here on this channel for years, the People's Republic of China conspiring against the United States is nothing new. The People's Republic of China has been actively conspiring against the United States for well over several decades at this point, but it does appear that the United States is now directly calling out the People's Republic of China, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and the Russian Federation for all conspiring against the United States and its interests abroad. This is a fairly strong way to put it. Actually, as far as diplomatic terms, this may as well be offensive for the large part. But I'd have to say that it's a warm welcome to see that sort of offensive wordage being given to clear enemies of the Republic, more so than people kowtowing to these foreign adversaries and acting like they're actually people to be trusted or nations to be respected. Nevertheless,
he left somebody out, though. He left out Maduro. Venezuela is also conspiring against the United States as well. You might have noticed today, which I'm sure we'll get around to this footage, but Maduro was holding up a Chinese-made smartphone and saying that Xi Jinping gave it to him personally, and he claimed it wasn't able to be cracked by the United States with its encryption. So it's obviously there's some huge links between Venezuela and China, and Maduro is making a big point to point that out as well. So it's a lot of countries banding together against us right now, which appears to be causing some alarm with the president, at least at this point.
I would have to agree. It does appear to be causing some alarm at the moment, but also I'd have to say that it's a little bit interesting, and I have to say that at this moment, folks, I think this would be a deserved approach to make, to also include the Republic of India in this sort of a statement, as it's quite clear that the Republic of India has no interest or wish at this moment to continue to pursue a more westerly approach or join the Western sphere of influence that they were courting, at least for several years, up until the past few months, when the threats were levied against them to stop buying Russian oil. They made it incredibly clear where their colors were, which are with the Axis powers for the larger part. Nevertheless, moving on from this breaking news, at least for now, of a directly worded and incredibly stern statement against the People's Republic of China, we are going to be returning back to the situation currently ongoing in South America under U.S. Southcom's command, and specifically the U.S. Navy's Second Fleet, because earlier in the day, before this little fishing boat was blown to smithereens, the best way to describe it, we were also able to hear that Venezuela is now deploying the brand new Zulfigar class fast attack craft equipped with Nasser 1 or Kosar anti-ship missiles. This is a speedboat that the Venezuelans bought from Iran, and the Iranians outfitted it with 2 anti-ship missiles. That's what the Venezuelans have deployed today. This is apparently, according to the Venezuelan government, supposed to be putting the United States to its knees and making the U.S. Navy quiver due to Venezuela's military might. I'm largely doubting
so ugly.
that.
I'm sure we are quivering. This thing is ugly, and also it's not even equipped with anything hardly. It's like two anti-ship missiles. That's pitiful.
I think the only people who are quivering from this one, Matthew, are the Puerto Rico Fish and Wildlife Service, which may actually have boats that could come under threat from such a fast attack craft as this. I mean, maybe this thing could take on a dinghy, or maybe some sort of a minesweeper, but this thing is certainly not going to be going up against a frigate or a destroyer of the United States Navy. That is not a likelihood.
Little dingy at best.
I mean, this thing is a little dingy. Like, honestly, I mean, it's a rough boat. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, look at this thing. Like, I don't even think the rudders are usable. It looks like the rudders are welded in place.
Yeah, it really does. It's hideous, honestly. I've seen bigger, like, personal yachts on trailers than that one right there. This is kind of sad. This is their main defense right here, which is an Iranian-built vessel, which is a joke.
I mean, really, to be honest with you, Matthew, I think this is what Jeff Bezos calls the away boat of his away boat that's connected to his private yacht. Like, this thing doesn't even register on the scale, like, for anyone.
I would agree 100%.
Yeah, this thing's rough, but nevertheless, this is what Venezuela is rolling out at the moment in terms of its maritime department, or the Navy, to be able to counter the United States Navy, which is currently in the region. Once again, I want to remind y'all that they're saying that this thing can take on an Arleigh Burke. Let me show y'all really quickly an Arleigh Burke to put it back to scale. This is an Arleigh Burke, and this is a speedboat. So I want to ask you all the question: can the speedboat go up against an actual Navy destroyer? And I'll let y'all answer that one in the live chat. But nevertheless, in the meantime, while the Venezuelans are trying to save face and make it look like they're ready to face the United States of America, it does appear that many people are talking about the larger issue that emerged today, which was the U.S. strike on the narco vessel, which was speeding along the coastline of Venezuela, from what we understand, towards the area of Colombia or further on towards Central America. Matthew, what are people thinking about that situation in the moment, and what are you thinking about it as well? Because I do understand that a lot of people are talking about what this might be, whether it's some sort of a warning shot on the escalatory ladder, and depending on how the Venezuelans respond, we could increase our escalation, or this may be some sort of a start of a military operation, whether or not the Venezuelans decide to respond in a hostile way or not. What are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so it looks like 45% of the audience said it is the start of a military operation by the United States against Venezuela, while 38% said it's just a warning shot to Maduro, and 9% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say this, since it was conducted in international waters, is probably just a warning shot to Maduro. This is not nearly the full capabilities of the military deployments on the coast. If the U.S. military wanted to, they could launch an assault on any major city inside of Venezuela. Now, that's not a ground assault, that's a missile assault, because obviously there's not enough Marines in the area to actually do a ground assault, in my personal opinion. But I would say this is not the start of a military operation. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen later. But this is the first warning shot to let Maduro know that the vessels mean business and we're not down there just for show. So I'm with the 38%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I believe that this is most likely going to be a warning shot. I'd actually have to go with the 38%, because while this was a pretty clear action today, hosing down a narco vessel in the middle of the coastline of Venezuela, this isn't anything that is even close to the firepower that the U.S. Navy currently has in the area. If we were to assume that an Arleigh Burke fired an anti-ship missile at this one boat, which would be a large amount of overkill, that one Arleigh Burke, and there's about 3 in the area currently, and there's soon to be more arriving along with the Ticonderoga, would still have about 7 anti-ship missiles left inside of its pretty much ready compartments, or pretty much its firing cells on board, ready to fire. That means that we are able to, of course, leverage even further firepower. What I think this might be, however, it might be an attempt to either create a blockade of Venezuela, forcing these vessels to pretty much stay inside of their ports along the coast, or it may be an extension of creating a warning shot and then seeing how Maduro will respond. If Maduro responds and attempts to conduct some sort of a hostile counterattack against the United States, that would give the United States a proper justification to say that the Maduro government is dangerous and violent, not only that, illegitimate, and supporting illegal, pretty much shipments of contrabands as a part of the cartel, and would allow them to open up further hostile actions against the state of Venezuela with a proper casus belli, which a casus belli, for those who may not know what the Latin term is, and that means pretty much a justification for war. What kind of a justification would we have? And if the Venezuelans respond, it's a pretty decent one. Generally, what we did today, by the way, just to explain the international law side of things, is that we attacked a narco vessel as a part of a cartel that was operating in the handling and shipment of illegal substances, i.e. drugs. Generally, no quarter is given to a terrorist organization. It's one of the few that you don't really have to show any kind of, I guess you could say, laws of respect to, like, for example, requesting that they surrender. We technically do not have to request for terrorists to surrender. They can be attacked on sight and destroyed if necessary, and it appears that the United States decided that today, which is actually within the parameter of the law for terrorist organizations. However, the other thing is that while we conducted that action, that vessel is claimed to have been a part of the nation of Venezuela, or affiliated to Venezuela in some way. So that most likely means that while we were able to operate under an international legal framework of claiming that we attacked a terrorist organization, by definition, it also was a direct attack against a Venezuelan flagged vessel, which means that in a dual sort of a sense, we were legally allowed to attack the vessel without it looking like an outright attack on Venezuela itself, and this now forces Maduro into a situation. The Venezuelan vessel was attacked. Do we respond and then clearly align ourselves with what is a terrorist organization, or do we not respond and we pretty much allow for all of these narco vessels to be blockaded by the United States Navy, possibly indefinitely at this point? And this is going to force Maduro to either act or sit back and do nothing, which could end up displeasing the cartel that he's heavily associated with at the moment. So that
also, Enforcer, I see a lot of people asking, how did the U.S. know who was on that vessel, and how did they know they were carrying drugs out of Venezuela and into international waters? What the USA does with that is they do keep track of these drug groups that are down there, and they're alleging that the guys on this specific boat that was hit were Tren de Aragua, which is the group that you keep hearing a ton about in the United States, and also you hear about these gangs of Tren de Aragua running around the U.S. and running around different states and distributing drugs. Well, allegedly, that's who it was on this boat right now. So if it was confirmed, I would assume it was. I would assume they probably tracked them leaving the port when they knew who these individuals were, and once they left, they saw a perfect opportunity to take a warning shot at the entire Venezuelan regime by taking the boat out. So that's probably how they knew. It's probably because they were tracking those guys that were on the boat even before they took off.
I would have to say that that's most likely the case. Also, everyone does have to understand that the FBI, the DEA, and the CIA all have a great deal of intelligence networks that are built up in this area to try and help them to figure out exactly how their operations are being conducted and also how to counter them in the future. The United States has the largest and most fleshed out intelligence network that we know of in the world for the larger part. So generally, from what we can tell, that seems to be the case. Also, I gotta say, I don't know what it is, Mandy. I never knew that there would be pro-cartel bots in our chat, but there were a lot of
bots.
Yeah, like there were a lot of people saying that how in the hell could they attack that little boat in Venezuela's waters? They have no right to interfere, and it's like. It's like, well, it's, they're a terrorist organization. I don't think a lot of people are clicking that at the moment. If you are designated a terrorist organization, that gives the United States to blow you up wherever you are, like, as far as a terrorist goes. That's how the government works. If you pay any attention, we've declared in the past that the Islamic Republic of Iran is a terrorist state. We drone attacked Soleimani in the United States at Baghdad International Airport in the middle of Iraq. I mean, we've attacked and taken out, as the United States, multiple leaders of terrorist organizations around the world, wherever they are. If you don't forget, Osama bin Laden was killed inside of Pakistan. It's not like we asked the Pakistanis for permission to do that. We just did it because he was a terrorist. That's how it works. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Also, another thing that I have to point out is that some people are saying, well, there's no way in hell that they would have known that that's a narco boat. Let me ask you this. Who in the world in the impoverished country of Venezuela is going to have enough money to get 4 outboard motors on a sampan?
I was about to say the same thing. I said, who's going to have the Lamborghini gondola in Venezuela except for maybe the drug cartels? That's the only people that can afford all those outboards like that. Those things are not cheap. And in Venezuela, like you said, it's very poor in Venezuela. So it's not like they're out there, racking up, what do they call it? Racks out here buying huge amounts of like engines. It's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, for one, almost everyone in Venezuela is living in poverty, so who the hell is going to have enough money for 4 outboard motors on their singular sampan, which, if it's not used for drugs, it's used as a fishing boat, and then also, if it's used as a fishing boat, why the hell do they need 4 outboard motors? It's not like they're trying to race the fish, so that wouldn't make any sense at all. Like none of that explanation makes any sense at all at the moment. This is a narco vessel, and we do have enough intelligence about how the cartel operations are conducted inside of South and Central America to be able to follow where they are and what they're doing. And this strike today is an example of that. Also, another thing that I have to add is that if they were fishermen, how come, at least in the boat, there appears to be square blocks or something, and I can promise you that those are not nets for fishing. Those nets are not stored in that sort of a way. Highly unlikely. So, unless they're...
Also, where were these guys trying to take this stuff to? And once again, it's all allegedly because, technically we don't have the direct proof. I would assume the U.S. has the direct proof, though, but we don't have it. But where were they trying to go to? Were they trying to head out to, like, Puerto Rico or something?
From what I've been able to hear, it seems that they were conducting some sort of a coast-skirting operation to try and make it to somewhere along Colombia or Central America somewhere, but we don't really know where. They didn't really give a lot of that information, but from what I was able to hear, apparently it was attacked while traveling in a westward direction, suggesting that it was most likely heading towards Colombia.
Interesting. So that would seem to line up with the idea of it's part of the drug trade of going closer to the United States, getting it over the border. That's probably what they're trying to do with it. It looks like, at least on what we're seeing.
Yeah, I would have to say so. Also, another thing, like, people are like, you can literally see the cargo. I mean, you literally can. I mean, it's right there, like right where my mouse cursor is. You can literally see the giant packs of drugs. It's not like this is something hidden. It's not like these were just like innocent fishermen that happen to have 4 outboard motors going at 70 miles per hour through the open Caribbean towards Colombia with a whole bunch of odd packages in the back. I mean, I can promise you this, these guys aren't working for Amazon carrying these packages or FedEx, so it's a little bit clear that they're conducting some sort of an illicit operation. And on top of that, the United States definitely had enough intelligence to be able to coordinate and conduct this attack against this vessel today. But nevertheless, it does appear that the United States of America is going to be waiting to see what Maduro's response will be, because it does appear that there has been no official response right now from the Venezuelan government. They've been incredibly quiet after this incident today and have not really conducted even any responses in terms of escalations like they did with the little fast attack boat. The fast attack boat right here, this was actually reported earlier in the day before the U.S. attacked the narco boat. So this is something that came before the narco boat attack, not afterwards. So we have heard absolutely nothing coming out of Venezuela for the moment, and we're not really sure what the next thing coming out of the Venezuelan government will be, considering that this vessel was Venezuelan associated. Nevertheless, we are going to be moving on out of the area of Venezuela and on into Europe, as we've also been able to hear significant news from this direction as well. Many of y'all will know that the Republic of Belarus is soon to be hosting a significant military exercise called the Zapad 2025. The Zapad 2025 is a Russian military exercise, largely using some Belarusian forces, but generally Russian entirely in its design and execution. These military forces are based strategically throughout Belarus, most importantly inside of a training ground directly north of Grodno and literally 1 mile away from the Belarusian-Lithuanian border. You can actually see that training ground right here on screen. This military exercise is one that's fairly concerning, because at the exact same time, as a part of the Zapad, a significant military exercise will also be conducted in the training grounds of eastern Kaliningrad, both of those training grounds being incredibly close to the Suwalki Gap. It is estimated that the amount of forces involved will most likely number somewhere around 115,000 men. A fairly significant number, and one that would directly threat the security of the Suwalki Gap if there was not a large enough defensive force within this area. On this channel, we have stated time and time again that such an escalatory action by the Russian Federation must be responded to in turn, and if they were to conduct a war game near the Suwalki Gap, a NATO country needs to conduct a war game of a large enough size, at least to a third of the size of the Zapad, to be able to effectively counter it, and largely show the Russian Federation that an attempted invasion of a NATO state or a vital link like the Suwalki Gap will not occur without significant losses being taken and the offensive objectives most likely not being secured as well. It does appear that the Republic of Poland has finally responded to that and has announced that they will be conducting the military exercise Iron Defender 2025. The Iron Defender is going to be one of the largest military exercises of this year, encompassing 30,000 men and also 600 pieces of equipment. This military exercise is going to be happening directly along the borders of Belarus and the Russian Federation near Kaliningrad, and will be completely stopping, at least in theory, any sort of an attempt by the Russian Federation to rapidly take the Suwalki Gap and close off NATO forces from being able to reinforce or help to defend the Baltic states. This is something that is quite important, incredibly important as a matter of fact, as this is quite a large deployment. 30,000 men is not small. To put this into perspective, about 30 to 40,000 men right now are fighting on the Russian side in the Russian army on the northern side of Pokrovsk. So this is not a small amount of men whatsoever, and especially considering that we're believing that the Zapad will most likely involve about 115,000 Russian soldiers in total, this actually meets the 3-to-1 defenders advantage that would be necessary to hold off Russian forces for long enough that a NATO force could be amassed and brought into the area to help to relieve the Polish defense forces that would be there at the moment. This military exercise is going to be conducted all the way from before the Zapad begins till the end of September, meaning that if Russian forces linger in the area even after the Zapad is officially concluded, the Polish army will still be there, directly along the border, directly waiting for any kind of a Russian attempt at an offensive into the Suwalki Gap. This is huge. This is absolutely massive. I gotta say that, for one, the Republic of Poland is showing an amazing display of force by doing this military exercise on the other side of the border. This is the exact kind of reciprocal action that was necessary within the area to be able to ensure the defense of the entirety of the Republic of Belarus and Kaliningrad, and the Suwalki Gap at large. Sorry there, I just got it reversed. The Polish are defending the Suwalki Gap. I was actually thinking about the Russian Federation, but nevertheless, this also, in turn, will be making the strategic situation incredibly complicated for the Russians. Considering that these forces will be conducting military exercises along the areas of the Kaliningrad and Polish borders near Grodno, this means that these forces, because they are in a war game or a military exercise, are going to be in a constant state of battle readiness, and also will be effectively armed in terms of munitions to account for that, considering that they are in the midst of a military exercise. This means that if the Russians attempted an offensive into the Suwalki Gap, these Polish forces are already at a state of readiness, and they are also armed to be able to prepare to face any threat that would come from the Russian side of the border. This means that if the Russians started an offensive, they largely would hit a brick wall. And also, another thing that I have to add here at the moment is that a lot of people are saying, well, 30,000 men is not close to 115,000. And this is something that is very important to consider when speaking about a country that will be on the defensive. Poland does not need to match the Russians 1-to-1 in terms of the forces that are here. A defender only needs to have a 30% force size compared to the enemy to be able to conduct a pretty decent defensive. A 5-to-1 advantage, if the Russians were able to amass that sort of a number, would overwhelm Polish defenses without a doubt. Even if the Polish were well armed and well trained, a 5-to-1 attacker's advantage is usually considered to be an overwhelming victory by default, just in the numbers, to the aggressor force, which would be the Russians in this situation. However, considering that we know that the Russians are most likely going to have only about 110 to 115,000 men, the Polish having 30,000 on their side of the border means that they are in a perfectly suited position to be able to conduct a blocking action, quite literally immediately at the advent of the opening of a Russian offensive, and hold the Suwalki Gap open. This means that the Russians also tried a joint attack on the entirety of the Baltic states, including Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. NATO forces could not only push the Russians back towards Kaliningrad and Grodno, but also race through the gap into the Baltic states and be able to help with the defense of those Baltic nations that are also a part of the NATO alliance. Meaning that, in short, the Polish are pretty much thwarting the entire Russian hypothetical plan that could be conducted here soon by this military exercise that's happening right now. So it does appear that at this moment, Poland is once again the bulwark and pretty much keystone defense nation of the eastern frontier of NATO. And a lot of people are actually talking about this at the moment and wondering if this would deter Putin or not. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Honestly, at this point, I think when Poland looks at the United States, they see the candy store because I think Poland has one of everything at this point. So, which is a very good thing because it's good to have a very armed partner in the region, and Poland is certainly that. But the big question on the poll is Poland launched its largest military exercise of the year with 30,000 troops, and it's going to run for the entire month of September, which happens to line up with Zapad 2025 in Belarus. And the big question is, will this deter Putin? And about 60% said no, Putin is dedicated to escalate the situation, while 18% said yes, Putin will pause aggression, and 14% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And honestly, I really think that if Putin is crazy enough to invade a Baltic state or even attack a Baltic state, that he has lost his mind at that point. So deterrence is really not a question at that point. It mainly switches to defense. Can the Baltic states defend themselves properly? And also, can Poland come to the rescue when they need the assistance? Because if Putin does something that wild, then that tells you his calculus of decision making has gone completely so left field that he's willing to basically risk his life and his entire country's life over that situation. So that does not indicate logic. That indicates desperation and just a lunatic at the helm. So I'm with the 59%. If Putin is going to do this and he uses the pod as a way to invade the Baltics, then he's definitely going to go for it. I'm 100% with that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 59% as well. I think that Putin is dedicated to escalation at this point. The Russian Federation is on its final legs right now. And while we will get into some news later on the night about how China is trying to throw them an economic lifeline, it's just not going to be a large enough economic lifeline to help save Russia. I don't think so. Generally, the Russians are in a do-or-die situation at this moment. And considering that, from what we would generally understand, Putin considers the death of his government to be the death of Russia, there really is nothing to lose if Russia is destroyed in the process of a larger conflict with NATO if they were seeking concessions as the end result of that sort of a conflict. With that in mind, while the Polish are prepared to defend their country right now and are already moving their forces into the border regions to prepare for Iron Defender 2025, that may not stop the Russian Federation from conducting a hostile action against the West. But what it will stop is the taking of the Suwalki Gap, which is a very important thing, vital as a matter of fact, because if the Russians took the Suwalki Gap, NATO's position in the Baltics is generally going to be untenable and an incredibly tough one to hold. With the Polish holding the Suwalki Gap, they are quite literally saving the Baltic states. That's the best way to explain it. So with that, I hope that does address that situation around the area of Poland the best we can. And also, I see some people talking about the situation around the Suwalki Gap, and also with generally Putin talking, well, at least us talking about Putin being in an all-or-nothing mindset. It's quite clear at this point that Putin is in an all-or-nothing mindset. The end of his government is the end of Russia in his mind. And to be entirely honest with y'all, that's pretty analogous to the kind of mindset that Adolf Hitler had at the fall of Germany. It was considered by Nazi Germany that if the Nazi party fell, the Germans may as well fall as a nation, and they follow through with that to an absolute T. If the Allies didn't destroy a factory, the Germans would surely destroy it in their retreat by order of the Nazi party. And that seems to be a similar mindset that Putin is working under right now. It's just that he is working under this mindset with a decent amount of nuclear weaponry at his disposal, which the Nazi government did not have during their time. Which I can promise y'all that if the Nazi government had that during their time, they would also be in the same mindset as well that Putin is in now, making it incredibly clear that Putin is literally Hitler. That's said for a lot of people these days is like a political gotcha sort of a thing for the most part, but I would have to say, as far as a leader looking identical to Hitler, Putin pretty much fits the bill in about every single way.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. Like honestly, like it's not cliche at this point. I know a lot of people are tired of hearing the comparison between the two, but Putin is literally following the same framework that Adolf Hitler did. He's doing the same dastardly things that Hitler did in his early days before he started World War II. He's doing the exact same stuff, and he's also backed himself into a corner where he really can't walk out of it, which is very dangerous for somebody like him with his mindset. So that's one thing. But also, Enforcer, have you heard? Because I saw the report come out yesterday that the EU is actually allocating funds to Lithuania so that way they can start monitoring the Russian trains going to Kaliningrad from this point forward. They can actually put more resources into actually monitoring what's in those trains and also inspecting more of them as they go to Kaliningrad.
Yes, I actually did hear about that, and that also is showing us, Matthew, by the way, that apparently the Lithuanians have been working off of the concept that we said initially, that it's just good faith and credit, and if the Russians declare, oh, it's all humanitarian, they go, okay, and then they just let it across across without inspecting it. So who knows what's going into Kaliningrad on those trains. But Europe is going to be providing, according to the EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen, more funding specifically to Lithuania earmarked to be able to surveil those trains and to ensure that the cargoes on board are truly humanitarian, meaning that the Lithuanians are most likely going to be stopping and inspecting these trains traveling on Lithuanian railroads here in the very near future. Also, before someone asks, I know someone's about to ask this, wait a minute, if Russian trains are traveling through Kaliningrad, well, traveling through Lithuania to get to Kaliningrad, how do we know that some of them aren't just veering off? I can promise you they're not, because the Lithuanians are in charge of the railroads and therefore in charge of the direction of travel of the train. The train is going straight from Belarus right into Kaliningrad. No stops in between. There, like, I'll bet
Isn't
you.
it
Hmm?
Isn't it just insane, though? Like, to me, it's still insane that we're letting any type of Russian train, cargo ship, vessel, or anything, like a truck, it's crazy we're letting anything get to Kaliningrad. It's like, if we control that Suwalki Gap and we have the ability to put a halt to it, then obviously it would be an escalation. But why are we letting them still bring things to Kaliningrad through that Suwalki Gap? I mean, that's extremely dangerous, because no matter how hard you try to vet these trucks and these trains coming through, they could try to sneak something in anyway. And why should we even bother with that, with Russia being an enemy state right now and also going to even escalate even worse in the coming months? Why would we let them through? It makes no sense.
I don't really get it either. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I guess in a way, it's sort of the humanitarian mindset that the Soviets didn't have that led to the Berlin airlift of 1953. I think that that's sort of the mindset that Eastern European countries are working off of, like the Baltics. Is that, well, if we cut off the trains and the trucks, then that could start to create a situation inside of Kaliningrad. So that might be the reason why they're doing it. I would still say that that doesn't justify the security risk that's being posed by these trains and trucks traveling through Lithuania, and I would generally have to say that for that reason, there should be some sort of response. Also, really quickly, I saw someone say this. This is a silly question, but I want to answer it really quickly because silly questions are always fun to address. Someone said, "How do we know if the drugs weren't going to Cuba or Mexico and not the U.S.?" In pretty much saying, if the drugs weren't coming to America, we shouldn't have done anything about them. As far as the boat coming from Venezuela. So here's my answer to that. We do not really care. They are terrorists, by definition. The cartels have been designated as terrorist organizations by the Republic. And for that reason, these terrorist forces will be targeted and destroyed no matter what action they are conducting. It does not matter if the cocaine was going to end up in Cuba or Mexico or the United States. They are a terrorist organization. They are terrorist operators operating under the banner of Venezuela, of course, by the blessing of Maduro, which is largely affiliated with the cartels, which are terrorist organizations at this moment. His government is illegitimate. They literally rigged the last election clearly because in the middle of the night when Maduro was losing, they literally shut down the news for about 8 hours and then came back and said Maduro won 80% of the vote. He wasn't even close to doing that when they went. It looks like the OBS has disconnected. Hold up. Oh. I don't know what's going on with that. YouTube's been having some server issues lately, and it appeared that it throttled OBS for a second. So hopefully we are back. I don't know what's been going on with that, because the internet connection is just fine. It looks like it's a YouTube issue, but outside of that, it does not matter what these terrorists are doing or where they're going. They are threatening American interests at large. If, like for example, it's like saying, well, Al-Qaeda did conduct 9/11, but when we killed Osama bin Laden, they were only doing some hanky-panky stuff in western Pakistan. That doesn't matter. The truth of the matter is that I would have to agree with the president's assertion that these cartels are causing a great amount of damage inside the United States of America. And not only that, with the ongoing fentanyl crisis, they are pretty much directly killing tens of thousands of Americans by lacing drugs with fentanyl. This is an incredibly concerning public health crisis, and not only that, it's causing a massive amount of fatalities inside the United States of America. These sorts of groups should not be allowed to exist. It doesn't matter if those guys were going to Cuba, Mexico, or the United States. It matters that they were continuing to operate in support of a terrorist force which is continuing to kill tens of thousands of Americans inside the United States. That's what the basic answer is, and that's why they ended up getting slammed. That's just the truth of it. But anyways, With that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news over the course of the night, and we have a large amount of it to go still. Moving us on into the Baltic Sea, we were able to hear that really quickly before we move into the Baltic Sea, I just realized that we have another poll, and also the European Union has allocated funds to Lithuania to monitor Russian trains going to Kaliningrad. Will this help? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so this is the contentious issue which we just talked about a second ago, because right now we are hearing that the Europeans are giving the funds to Lithuania to monitor Russian trains, basically to inspect them even closer with them going to Kaliningrad. So is this going to help? And 54% said yes, it protects the Suwalki Gap, while 29% said no, they should prevent the Russian trains from even going to the area of Kaliningrad, and 6% said it's too risky to stop the Russian trains. And I would say this. I would say, since we suspect that Russia is about to launch an invasion or an attack on a Baltic state, and they've even alluded to it in the past, I would say stop the trains, personally, because Kaliningrad is an enclave for Russia to be able to launch an attack on our NATO allies, and why should we let them have trains running constantly from Russia to this area, which they are obviously an enemy territory, right in the middle of NATO territory? That makes no sense to me, and I think we should stop it before it turns into a bigger issue, because if we're having to give tons of millions of dollars to Lithuania to inspect these trains, that means that we highly suspect that Russia's smuggling in weapons if we're doing that. And I say just stop the trains. That's the easiest way forward, and it seems to be the most logical way forward. Some with the 29%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with the 29% as well. I believe that all Russian trains should be stopped through Lithuania, citing national security concerns. It's incredibly obvious that the Russian Federation is a national security concern for the Republic of Lithuania and for the NATO alliance, and for that reason, we do have proper justification to void the prior treaty, which did allow Russian vehicles and trains to be able to pass through Lithuania heading to Kaliningrad on the quote statement that they were conducting humanitarian or commercial operations. All trains and trucks through Lithuania should stop immediately without further delay. That would be my opinion as well. But moving on from that, we have been able to hear of further news inside of the Baltic Sea, as we have been able to hear that a second major power outage has now affected the Gotland island. Most of the island is now without electricity, and authorities are saying that it was probably caused by a lightning strike during a storm, although that's a little bit odd, because coincidentally this has happened twice in about a week and a half. This is the second island-wide outage in less than 2 weeks, quite obviously. The previous outage at the end of August was initially suspected to be sabotage, but was later found to be caused by a broken ground cable at a specific station on the island. There's currently no exact forecast for when power will be restored, but nevertheless an ongoing issue. In the meantime, the United States is actually conducting maritime patrols around the area with their P-8 Poseidons, which we can actually see one of those P-8 Poseidons conducting its orbits of the Baltic Seas right here on this flight radar tracker. So it does appear that the United States is apparently finding something of note in the Baltic Sea to be able to conduct maritime operations for, or largely maritime search and surveillance operations. But moving on out of the Baltic Sea, generally the frontier of NATO, we are going to be also moving further on down and into the area of East Asia, and specifically into the People's Republic of China, as we have been able to hear of major developments coming from this area that is also starting to depict a very interesting sort of a alliance, of a sense, an economic one at least for now, and a military one that we already know of, between the People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation. It's one that is quite interesting, also showing that the Chinese are starting to put their cards on the table, or more so putting all their chips all in on the Russians, which might not be a good play, probably not the greatest gamble to make. But nevertheless, before we move on into that news and the rest of the news that we have over the course of the night, I do want to make sure that we get a couple of questions, just a few, before we move on. Also, by the way, I've got to give a huge shout out to the 100,000 people who have watched this stream so far and the 15.5 thousand people who are here at the moment. That is truly incredible, and we thank y'all all so much once again for choosing this channel to be your primary source of news, and we hope it's up to a high standard again tonight, like it usually is. If y'all are enjoying it right now, please make sure to subscribe. We actually just hit 487,000 subscribers, and it looks like we're well on our way towards the midway point to 488 on the march to 500,000. So please make sure to subscribe, because we would love to have y'all here, and y'all help our community, the Lee Spring Army, to continue to grow larger and larger. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got for some questions?
All right, so 100,000 people here in the first hour. That's insane, by the way. And like the enforcer said, we're glad to have every single one of you here tonight. So jumping right into our first super chat question, this one goes to LC39A, a channel legend, by the way. And thank you very much, good sir, for that massive $152 support. That's extremely generous once again, and we do appreciate that very, very much. That keeps the channel running. And he said the U.S. is going after its enemies, one dictator at a time.
And I thank you for the massive support, LC39A, and I hope that that is true. I hope that the United States is going after our enemies one dictator at a time. That would be a wonderful thing to see. And also, I have to add that as far as the actions that were taken today, especially the statement from the president that just came out at the beginning of the stream, I find that to be in a pretty positive direction. I don't really think that poking the Chinese at the moment is a great idea, but generally I'm behind the principle of poking the Chinese here and there, because they are quite clearly an adversary and enemy of the United States, even if we are economically connected to them heavily, even still at the moment. So I generally have to say that that's a good thing to see. I was pretty happy to see that. And it's also good to see that we're trying to generally prod the Venezuelan government to see what they're going to do about this attack on the narco boat today, and if they respond in any way, that actually will give us a pretty good justification to move forward with getting rid of Maduro, which is pretty much a Axis-aligned leader leading a nation directly in the Americas, which poses a direct threat to the United States. Some people actually don't know this, LC39A, but the United States considers the entirety of the Americas, both North and South America, to pretty much be America's domain. That doesn't mean that we have to directly control every country here, but that means that really we take the philosophy that no country in the entirety of South and North America can be openly hostile against the United States of America. The only one that's gotten away with that so far is Cuba, but that's because of the whole Cuban Missile Crisis thing that happened back in the day. Outside of that, however, Venezuela is a very dangerous sort of a state to have in that area. If Russia provided them with any kind of cruise missiles or ballistic missiles, which is not out of the question, Venezuela actually can target people who live here in the southeastern region of the United States of America. So before those people start to sit there and say, oh, Venezuela's got no reason to be targeted by the United States, that's just wrong, that's warmongering, or before anyone says, oh, that's just outrageous, just remember that they can actually blow you up right now. Like at least a quarter of the people who are saying that right now, the Venezuelans, if they're given a missile by the Russians, will actually absolutely blitz you. Like they're not going to think twice about it. They'll ram a missile straight into your house and blast you to pieces, and they won't think twice about it. So just remember that when we talk about Venezuela, they are an imminent threat, not just in a abstract sort of a sense. They can actually blow you up if they get the right kind of weaponry from the Russians. So it's a little bit important to remember that, and keep that in mind when we talk about the Venezuelans. They can actually end up causing some damage.
I will say this though, like I'll be honest, like here now I will say this: I am not one of these people that's going to sit here and say that the U.S. shouldn't hit the drug boats or something like that because that's not right or something like that. If it's a drug boat and we can back that up with proof that it was a drug boat, then why would America not be in support of that? Because obviously these cartels are sending drugs up to our border and then over and then poisoning our entire population. So that's terrible. So I would say I'm not against that whatsoever. Hitting those drone boats, not drone boats, but the drug boats. I'm not against that whatsoever. But at the same time, though, we could have probably chosen our fight a little bit more carefully here because we're about to start or see the start of World War III in Europe, perhaps in the next couple of months, and we're picking a fight in Venezuela. It's like picking the small dog. There's a huge dog over there in Europe right now. It's about to start fighting, but we're picking the small dog down in South America to start fighting with them instead. It's kind of a little bit backwards.
You know, Matthew, I was actually thinking that, and I was in agreement as well, but I actually did a little bit of digging over the course of yesterday and today on America's lead up to the Second World War. And you wouldn't believe it, Matthew, but we did literally the same thing leading up to World War II, right next to Venezuela in Panama. I could not believe it. We actually did fairly a similar thing. We started to see that Panama's government was leaning heavily towards the Axis powers, which while we were openly neutral in 1940, we still didn't like them, and we knew that we were going to be at war with them here in the near future. So what we did is that we went down to Panama and we just deposed the guy who was in charge of Panama, who was largely leaning towards Benito Mussolini. We overthrew him and then pretty much militarily occupied the entirety of Panama through the entirety of the war. And it was not a small undertaking. There were tens of thousands of American troops that were involved in that action in 1940, just a year before World War II broke out, and then we occupied it for the remainder of the conflict, and then released it, except for the Panama Canal Zone, at the end of World War II. Seems like something, it seems like it's actually a little bit similar to what we're doing in Venezuela. And I was like, I was like, America wasn't really well armed before World War II. We actually had an incredibly small standing military at the opening of World War II. And I was like, that's actually not that far off from what we could be doing right now.
But also at the same time, though, we would go to Panama and go take care of that problem because they had the canal then as well, right?
Yeah, the canal was there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that would be a major reason to go down there and create an issue. There's really, in my opinion, no main reason to go to Venezuela and do what we're about to do right now by attacking their cities or something like that. Now, of course, Venezuela is an enemy of the United States because their government is a dictatorship. They're highly opposed to the United States, and they're highly aligned with China. So there's no doubt they're an enemy. But we needed to do that to Panama, though, before World War II started, or that other World War started, because we had to make sure the canal stayed open. We couldn't lose the canal. That was something that was so strategic. We had to keep that open at all costs. But there's nothing like that in Venezuela, in my personal opinion. So I see some people like little by little saying practice makes perfect, so Venezuela makes sense. It's just such a different terrain down there. It's a whole different landscape. It's not really the practice that the U.S. military needs if we're going to need to employ that in Europe, in my personal opinion.
Really quickly, I want to check this out. So actually, interesting enough, I wanted to show this. These are the top oil producing countries in the world, and that's 2012. We need something more modern. Let's see here. Damn. There doesn't, well, let me go try and find one that's more modern than this. So, do we have
Also, some people are saying oil. The thing is, here's the thing: Venezuela may have oil, but the U.S. Can produce enough oil to be in a surplus. Like we have enough oil here domestically in the United States. We don't have to go invade other countries to get the oil. So it may bring some more wealth to American companies if we did that, but it's not something that's crucial to national security because we produce tons of oil. We're one of the biggest producers in the entire world. When we were doing all that fracking a while back.
But also at the same time, though, here's some things that I could say to be a devil's advocate in support of the policy we're seeing right now. One, Venezuela does produce about 1 million barrels of oil per day, which is the 21st largest oil producer in the world. But oddly enough, falls behind the UK, Norway, and so on and so forth. But anyways. Beyond that, it does appear that Venezuela is a pretty decent oil producer. But more so, one thing I could say that could be a threat is that they could be a threat to ships trying to transit the Panama Canal because of their proximity to it. If the Russians or the Chinese or anyone else wanted to give the Venezuelans anti-ship missiles, they're within anti-ship missile firing range of the canal, meaning that if a ship is getting towards the Panama Canal and trying to get through it, the Venezuelans could start lobbing anti-ship missiles their way, and they're quite literally sitting ducks. They're, at a couple of knots speed. They can't even conduct any kind of maneuvers. They're literally sitting there having to try and defend themselves from an anti-missile barrage as they're trying to transit the canal, which could be a pretty significant issue. On top of that, any sort of major shipping within the area of the Gulf of America or the Caribbean, which is a fairly decent amount, really more so through the Caribbean, less so than the Gulf of Mexico, they could threaten that directly as well by firing off anti-ship missiles at any commercial shipping or generally wartime shipping that would be passing through the Caribbean directly near to their coast. So at least from a strategic standpoint, they do pose a great risk to the shipping lanes if they're properly equipped with anti-ship missiles and air defense batteries to be able to stop themselves from being hit heavily by U.S. air attacks in the future.
Maybe so, maybe so. I just still believe that even though that does make sense, the rationale behind what you're saying makes perfect sense. It's just, there's just a bigger fight. I'm seeing it very clearly at this point. I think a lot of people are seeing this very clearly, that Putin is hell-bent on forming the new Axis powers with Xi Jinping. And the only reason they would do that is if they're planning to start World War III. That's the only reason they would form an alliance that large, is if they were trying to do that. And Putin's already making these major moves with these Zapad exercises in Belarus. So to me, it seems like we need to make sure we are wide open and ready for that when it breaks out, whenever it does.
Yeah, I would have to say I think that we should be ready, but at the same time, I also, like I was saying with the Houthis in the past, in Panama even before, we always have to make sure to take care of the smaller ones. And considering that there is a historical precedent to show America was dealing with the small fries right before World War II and World War I to a degree, like for example, it's kind of odd, man, because, we have a lot of things going on here in Central America that line up to literally like the pre-World War I and World War II era. The U.S. wanting to go and fight the cartels was the U.S. fighting Pancho Pancho Villa in 1917, which was his era's version of a cartel. In the lead up to World War II, we pretty much invade Panama and depose their government. Now we're possibly claiming on doing that to Venezuela, just a couple of 100 miles next door to the east. So it's pretty much like everything that's happening right now in the Americas is a almost direct mirror to the lead up of World War I or World War II in the pre-war actions that were taken by the United States in both instances. A little bit interesting with that.
Yeah, it's really weird, honestly. I'm beginning to wonder since the world is pretty much solidified into what it is today. Like pretty much everybody that's in charge of certain pieces of land now, they're pretty much going to stay in charge of it for a very long time. With the way the world's pretty much static with borders these days, for the most part, except for a few places, there might be only one or two pathways that world wars can start, and that might be why we're seeing such a parallel to World War II that we're seeing right now. Is because with these borders and these governments being solidified around the world, there's only a few routes that it could take to escalate to World War III, and that's why we're seeing it take the exact same route.
It could be, actually. It's still just bizarre to think that, at least for now, it seems, by the way, that we might turn out wrong if World War III doesn't happen. But if it does happen, it seems as though every single world war has some of the same leading elements to them that all prior world wars had. So a little bit interesting in that regard. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into those questions. So, well, actually, we already were in a question. We were talking about
Yes.
LC39A's question. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, LC39A. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a massive thanks to you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't have been able to keep it rolling. So a massive, huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the second question of this segment.
All right, and our second super chat goes to Anthony Wilson, and thank you very much, Anthony, as well, for that $22 support. And of course, that helps keep the channel running, and we appreciate that. And Anthony said, concerned, as a big fan of both, what will become of the Turkey-Israel relationship if there even was one?
I'm going to be honest, I don't really know. It's a little bit of a hard one to say because I've never seen the Turks and the Israelis, at least on the diplomatic end, openly hostile to each other like they are right now. There's never really been a time because Turkey has never existed in this sort of a foreign policy mindset in any other historical era so far, since 1921 and 1922. So I would generally have to say I don't know. Turkey is a NATO country and does have a decent amount of arms support from the United States. A lot of their army relies on American equipment. At the same time, the Israelis are in the exact same boat, at least as far as their Air Force is concerned, which is the most important thing Israel has going for them. A lot of that's American provided. Both of them have significant relationships with the United States, both strategically and economically, so I would have to say it's a little bit hard to say which would come out on top. I generally would say that the Israelis would come out on top because it doesn't really make any sense for us to back the Turks, which are kind of like a lukewarm ally, to beat up the Israelis, which are a more important ally, at least within their strategic region of the Middle East. So I think, honestly, nothing's going to come out of this because the United States is quite literally going to force the two sides that they cannot touch each other or do anything lest there be severe consequences from America's end, because both of them are just too strategic and too American aligned to really go at it like that. If the United States lets that happen, I'm going to be somewhat disappointed because we're literally having our allies fight with against each other, and this isn't the Holy Roman Empire where that sort of a thing is accepted. That's not allowed. So I think that we're generally going to make this assuredly not happen. If it does, though, I'll be shocked and I'll be incredibly disappointed that we would let that happen. But both of them are fairly strategically important to the United States, so we really can't let them brawl. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a big thanks to you for the support, Anthony Wilson, in helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the final question in this segment, and then we're going to be on into the rest of the news of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Jack Ragnarsson, and thank you very much, Jack, for that $20 support and also helping to keep the channel running. And he said Russia has a habit of attacking on certain anniversaries, and September 17th, the day after these Zapad exercises are to end, September 17th of 1939 was the Soviet invasion of Poland, and this has me deeply troubled that the U.S. will concede to Russia.
And I thank you for the support, Jack Ragnarsson, but the thing with that is that the U.S. is not going to concede to Russia because they have no right to tell the Polish to concede. Poland is a completely separate country, and while they have some American hardware in their armed forces, a lot of their hardware is multinational. A lot of them come from different corners of the world, like their K2 Panthers come from South Korea, their Leopard 2s come from Germany, and so on and so forth. So I generally don't think that it's really a question of whether America would concede to the Russians or not. It's really a question of how many Russian soldiers are going to end up getting killed by the Poles. I think that's really the bigger question, and the answer is going to be plenty, quite a lot of them, because the Polish army is not weak, or a pushover for that matter. I have studied them extensively, and I found someone on Wikipedia is about as obsessive as me, and made a land forces chart. And I want to quickly show y'all this because while not explaining the units, each one of these little units right here with an X on it is a brigade, and generally a brigade is assumed to have about 3,000 to 5,000 guys in it. That's what we generally go with. It can vary greatly. Like all the brigades in the 1st Legion's infantry division, they are not up to that sort of a strength. Their brigades are more so brigades on paper, but more so regimental in their structure for the larger part. But outside of that, one thing I do have to say is that this is the Polish military. Now, let me show you what another country would have in the area that a lot of people would think would be powerful. Let's go with the British Army, because they will also have a NATO force structure map as well. And also, it's not the Royal Army, by the way. I wanted to clarify that. Some people think it's the Royal Army. It's actually the British Army. For some reason, everything else is the Royal Navy, the Royal Marine Corps, the Royal Air Force. But the Army isn't the Royal Army. It's the British Army. I completely forgot the reason why that's the naming convention, but I do remember that that is the case. Anyways, let me go show y'all the force organizational map of the British Army in the present day, because it's a little bit smaller. So wait, hold up. British Army.
Also, by the way, while you're looking for that, by the way, I've gotten some new images out of the meeting in Beijing, or with the Chinese leader, the Russian leader, and the North Korean and Iran leaders on Twitter right now. When you want to take a look.
Got you. And let's see here. Well, let me try and find this really quickly, folks. Let's see here. That is, I think that might actually be the best. Hold up. This might actually be it. Let me go here. Here we are. This is the field army of the British Armed Forces right here. These are the field army troops in Andover, and that's a pretty okay amount, but it's not incredibly large. And let me see here really quickly if I can show you all the rest of the British Army, because that's their field army forces, and we want to find the whole thing. And for some reason, they don't have that. I don't know why. Let me check the whole page. They don't. Why in the world is that the case? Anyways, beyond that, however, let me see if I can just go. Here we are. This might be the best one that we have for now. So let me scroll down and show it to y'all, because it's a little bit important to show the differences in size of the armed forces in Europe. Because while a lot of people always talk about America this, America that, this is, damn, can we get it bigger? No, we can't. So this is the British Army. It's an incredibly zoomed out sort of a deal, but this is the Polish Army. The British are made up of about, let's see here, if I can count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're made up of about 4 divisions. The Polish are made up of 5, and they're incredibly well fleshed out. Each one of their brigades, each one of their divisions has about 5 brigades inside of them, or 6. The British have about 4 per division. So, in general, the Polish Army is far larger than the British Army. So for that reason, Poland is a major power, and it's really not up to whether America would concede, it's up to whether they would. And they have the largest ground army in Europe right now, spare none. Not even the U.S. Army of Europe and Africa is as large as the Polish. And so for that reason, they're going to be stomping, like the best way to say it. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion right now. And also, Matthew, what were you saying just a second ago to remind me here really quickly before we move on into the rest of the news?
Oh, we got some pictures coming out of all the Axis Power leaders together in one photo that's coming out right now on Twitter. So you can show that to the audience if you want. It's all of them in one big photo if you scroll down a few.
And let's see here. Scroll. For some reason, that looks like AI. I don't know what it is.
I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing as well, but I looked at it and it doesn't appear to be AI. But I'll be honest with you, I hate AI like messing up like whether photos are legit or not these days. Like I have to study the hell out of them. I've studied this one and it looks like it's probably real, but you never can tell these days because AI has gotten so good with replicating images. But it appears to be it's real, but take it with a grain of salt.
I would have to. The fact Kim Jong Un is wearing a normal suit is kind of off-putting a little bit.
Is that the tell?
I think so, because I don't think he wears normal suits, at least often. Let me go check that in other picture references. Because you see, what he normally wears is this Mandarin collar, like right here or right there. That's at a Russian North Korean meeting. He did wear a suit here though, so there is some credence that he could have worn a suit, but he doesn't wear them often. So that's what's kind of throwing me off here is that he usually wears the Mandarin collar. He does wear a suit though from time to time, but I don't know. Wait a minute, hold up. Everyone's wearing the same lapel. Well, hold up, that might actually be quite important right there. Let's see. Kim Jong-un. Why are they all wearing the same lapel? And why is Xi wearing the whole Mandarin collar deal? But then again, at the same time, they have this picture of Xi, and he's wearing the same suit with a Mandarin collar and all. So I don't know. This might actually be a legit picture. I don't know. I hate that AI has done this where we have to go and second guess and question everything. So he doesn't wear a lapel most times. That wouldn't make any sense from where the Smiling Kim lapels, because he is.
Well,
the
even
Kim.
even if it is AI, it's still representative of all of them being there because all these guys are actually there. It's not a myth. These guys are actually there. So you've got the Iranian leader back there. You've got Putin, obviously, Xi, and also the North Korean leader standing right there as well. So that is basically the new axis. And obviously, there's some smaller countries involved with it as well, like Venezuela, but they're not important enough to actually be at the meeting. So this is the big boys right now. This is the ones we're going up against, and they appear to be very chummy with one another, I would say.
Where's Modi?
That's a good point. Modi's not there. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Where the hell is he? He's more important than either two of these idiots. Like, where the hell is he? Like, economically, he's like the most important guy there, except for Xi. He's not in the picture. Let's see. I don't know. I feel something about this is ticking that this might be AI to me. Something about it. But anyways, moving on from that, bro, the Dongfeng 5.
Dongfeng. Man, I'll tell you what, this little drill they had today, this exercise, it was pathetic. I'll be honest with you. Like the stuff looks potent, but the reality of it is, it's like we know that some of the stuff is not working the way they claim it works. Like all these drones they're showing, like they're not showing them in action necessarily. They're showing them driving down the street. So you have to sort of take them at their word for it. There's one video right there of it. Some of these drones they've got. I think it's a wing long on that second trailer right there.
It's a wing long. No way.
Yeah, that one up front though, that delta wing shaped one, that's the most interesting out of the bunch right there by a long shot. This thing right here is like I think that's like their version and the Chinese version of a wingmate basically to these drone or these fighter jets. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like the U.S. Air Force is talking about having a wingmate to F-22s or something like that. That's a drone format.
I thought this was analogous to like an RQ-170 Sentinel, like a stealth recon drone.
Well, that one is. But if you go 4 down, like in this lineup here, if you go to the 4th drone down, you'll see which one I'm talking about. This one right here, it's basically just like a wingmate to a fighter jet.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think that is the case. That's interesting. Also, I'm just watching this, folks, and it's so mesmerizing. Look at them go. They're all in step. Wow, incredible. You know how long this took them to get ready for this parade, y'all? It took them about a month. So these guys were doing this nonstop every day for a month. So let me put this into perspective for all of y'all. This was a whole month that these guys actually weren't focusing on what their actual combat roles or positions are. They were just focusing on choreography. So that's 1 month out of 12 in the whole year that they wasted at this parade. So when you think about it, this parade is actually a big benefit to the United States because they focus on the camera work and the choreography more than they do combat effectiveness, which means, considering that the U.S. doesn't really do parades like this, and we spend 12 months of the year constantly training and also doing our jobs effectively, this means that they're wasting an entire month that we're not, at least for the specific units that are involved in this parade. So that's pretty nice, because look at them go. I mean, this is amazing choreography right here. This truly does take a long amount of time to get down.
It really looks like AI. Like if anything does, this does.
Yeah, but they are extremely coordinated. Man, this took so much effort. Like, it really did. Like, when you watch this, Like, folks, it takes forever to get people to march in step. It really does. Like if you ever tried to see anyone do it, people act like it's the toughest thing ever. Like, and it's one of the big, like, it was one of the big points of pride in most branches of service, at least in basic. They're getting rid of it now because it's just never really used anymore. A lot of basics are like, I think of the last I heard, the Air Force and the Army don't teach drill anymore in basic. I might be mistaken. Anyone let me know if I am. I
I
know.
think that might be a mistake. I think that might be mistaken.
Well, I know that someone in the Space Force said that the Air Force didn't do it. I know that they said that because they said that the Space Force was special and that they had to do it literally everywhere, and there was nowhere that they couldn't. But this is taking a lot of effort.
Real quick, go back and grab my second Twitter post, and then we'll move back to the news after this. Show the second one right here. Yeah, this one right here. Look at this. The caption is, "Watch the damn parade and stop asking me about lunch." Honestly, it actually fits because Kim Jong Un looks shocked, like, "Wait, what'd you say?" And she's like, "Watch the damn thing, man. Stop asking me." It's like it really fits.
Kim Jong Un said, "Where's the bao Xi?" Xi Jinping said, "Bow up your damn mouth and watch this parade."
Kim Jong said, "Hey, you got any Twinkies like sitting around anywhere?" And she said, "Don't ask me about Twinkie. Bing Shilling, look at the parade."
Bro, Xi Jinping is sitting there pointing at those guys. He's like, "You cannot eat them." and Kim Jong Un's like, "Oh," he's like, "What?" But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to get to the rest of the news. But we had a good amount of time with that. Anyways, moving on. Also, really quickly, I got to pull this up. Does the Army Basic no longer teach drill? Why was one of the top search results that I was typing in? It said, does the Army Basic no longer slave? I'm like, what? I'm like, anyways, let's see. Oh, so apparently there's now a renewed emphasis on drill and ceremony. So,
Yeah, I was about to say.
so they were, like, the last I heard, they were waning it away until it was, like, next to nothing in importance. Apparently now they're bringing it back, though. Anyways, moving on from that, though, it is time for us to get on into the rest of the news from around the world, and we do have a significant amount. Moving on into the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to hear that air defense sirens were sounding within western Iran, and there was also this explosion, which the video has never loaded at all today inside of western Tehran. So, trust me, bro, there was an explosion. We have the video right here, but for some reason it doesn't play. I don't know why. We do not know why the air defense sirens were going off, and that there was air defense fire within western Tehran, and where the explosion came from, but it does appear to be quite a significant development, at least within the area, and it is showing us that the Islamic Republic of Iran continues to find itself under some form of a hybrid attack. It's the Mossad. But nevertheless, before we move on into the rest of our news in the Middle East, we do have another question for all of y'all. China and Russia agreed to construct a new major pipeline. I forgot that we actually have to cover that news inside of the People's Republic of China really quickly before we move on into the Middle East. I thought we had already covered that. But moving on into the news inside of Beijing, we were able to hear, before we get to that poll, that Russia and China did sign a deal to build a new Trans-Siberian gas pipeline. This gas pipeline will be connecting Russia and China's fuel markets together and allowing them to supply Russian natural gas directly into the People's Republic of China. Pretty much an attempt to replace or supplant the European market, which the Russians have pretty much lost complete access to. Now, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so y'all might recall, I've been yapping for months. I've been saying that China is going to try to bail Russia out when it comes to their oil crisis. And a lot of people have been saying, they won't do that. They wouldn't bankroll Russia. What benefit do they have to bankroll Russia? And I said, they have to have somebody in their corner, even if it's old ratty Russia. They still have to have them. And what does China do today? They've agreed today to construct a major pipeline to take oil from Siberia and send it straight to China to purchase Russian energy products. And the big question is China bailing Putin out? So 62% said yes, China is bailing Putin out, while 13% said no, it's just friendly cooperation, and 18% said it's too little too late, basically. And I would say it looks exactly like what it is. China is bailing Putin out, just like I predicted he would. This is a early phase of a bailout. Now, don't take this for everything. This is what we're hearing about in the public, but I would assume behind closed doors, China is probably also helping to bankroll the Russian economy as well, because Like I've also been saying for a long time, how is Russia's economy staying afloat with so many oil enterprises getting destroyed and hit on a daily basis? How are they surviving? Also, the gas crisis is proof that it's hitting the refineries so bad they can't even keep up with gas demand. That's why they're having a huge gas shortage across Russia, Crimea, etc. So, how's their economy staying afloat in that condition? It shouldn't be staying afloat because oil is the main way that Russia makes money, and gas. And right now, it's being hit hard. So, I'm with the 62%. I think it's a clear bailout. But Enforcer, what say you?
China is doing what they call a classic bailout. They're bailing out the Russians. They said, give them some money. They're dying around here. They can't handle it anymore. 7,000 Russians died of having no money. They're broke ass and they're very poor. They have no Jordans. Grease the J's is what they say. Grease the J's. But beyond that, I would have to say the Chinese are definitely bailing the Russians out at this point. The Russians are on their economic last legs. It's incredibly clear. A lot of their economy is pretty much plummeting down the tubes. And for that reason, the Chinese are now trying to come in to save the day. I actually talked about my analysis of this earlier on the short war video. But basically what this is, said at least in liquefied natural gas, it's attempting to supplant or just replace the European markets. China does not have the purchasing power, however, of Europe. Europe has more purchasing power altogether combined, which means that while the Russians are able to replace that market that they've lost to some degree, it still is not going to make as much money as the European market. So it's an attempt to try and stop the hemorrhaging and the dying off of their economy, at least for now. But it's not gonna be as good as Europe. Like, and also don't listen to the BRICS propaganda where they're like, China has an $18 trillion GDP, but if you do some wonky stuff and bend it like a straw, it turns into 36 trillion. That doesn't actually exist in real life. They have an $18 trillion GDP, and they have that much money. That's just the end of the story. So, with that in mind, China is not really going to be able to supplant the European market. They'll try, and it'll at least stymie off the complete Russian collapse, but we do have to point out that the pipeline doesn't just, materialize. It's going to take years for this thing to get built, which means that in the meantime, the natural gas situation between the two countries is identically the same to what it is right now for the next 3 years until that pipeline opens. Pipelines are not easy to build, and considering that a lot of this pipeline is going to be traveling through the remote regions of Siberia, this is going to be a pretty arduous and expensive project to undertake at all, and it's not going to be easy. So, generally, while the Chinese are bailing them out, this is like a bailout in 3 years' time. And by then, the Russians might not even be around like they are at the moment to be able to get that kind of a bailout. So, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But moving on from that, we also were able to hear in Beijing that Putin actually admitted to striking Ukrainian energy infrastructure. I'm just going to let y'all hear it.
И очень, особенно в зимний период. И очень долго терпели, когда украинские войска наносили постоянные удары по нашим энергетическим объектам. После этого начали отвечать. И мы отвечаем, конечно, серьезно.
So he admitted to hitting the energy infrastructure.
Was he such a little smug bastard? Why does he have to be so smug when he talks? It's so obnoxious to hear him be so smug when his whole country is dying and losing. It's just so obnoxious.
I'm just a little baby, Mr. Xi. The Ukrainians punched me and it hurt. But beyond that, I'd have to say this guy's full of shit. Also, pay attention to how he said the Ukrainians hit their energy infrastructure first and then we responded. There's a problem with that. Russia hit a power plant in the first hour of the war. The first hour, the invasion in February 23rd of 2022, they hit a power plant with one of the first missiles fired. So, how the hell can the Ukrainians hit Russian energy infrastructure first, considering that the Russians did it literally within the first minute of the first hour of the war? Once again, folks, doesn't that line up a lot with the same kind of bullshit that they've been saying for years about how the Ukrainians were conducting a genocide in the Donbass and there's literally no proof for it? This is the same thing. He's coming out with the same stupid-ass statement that, the Ukrainians, those wicked people, they attacked the Russians first, and there's no proof for it. As a matter of fact, it's the complete opposite. Like if you've actually been here on this channel, following this thing for the 1,287 days, which we've been covering for every single day of, and you go back to my first stream, they hit a power plant in Kyiv. They actually hit a dam in Kyiv. That's a hydroelectric power plant. So how in the hell can this guy sit here and say this stupid stuff like, they hit us first in the power plants, and then we responded, so it's clearly defensive, and we're justified. Just like he did with the Donbass. It's the same crap, and there's no proof to any of it. None whatsoever. But anyways, moving on from that and out of Beijing, because I'm absolutely tweaking over that kind of a stupid statement, and the fact that some people are going to take that and run with it without doing any research, we are now going to be moving on back into the Middle East, as we've been able to hear of some missile dysfunction from the Houthis. They fired off 2 missiles today, Matthew. Not just 1, 2. And both of them failed. Both of them ended up falling short.
Oh, what a damn shame.
Motor failures is what it was. They just couldn't get the missiles up. It was a damn shame. They fell short in Saudi Arabia, and yeah, that's what it is. So it appears
Sounds like they might need a little missile Viagra, a little something something.
Some people are saying they can't get them up. They can't get the missiles up. They just fall short a little bit, a little short, maybe a little small. But beyond that, they're going to get some Misagra. It makes it work. It makes it completely work. It flies straight to Israel, and then they get shot down anyway. So it doesn't even matter. But also, by the way, notice, folks, the Houthis were going to be incredibly generous to Israel today. Instead of firing 1 missile like they do, they were going to fire 2. Wow, that's crazy. They're really upping their potential here. But moving on from that, we were also able to hear that the Israelis did launch a spy satellite today. This spy satellite is called the OFEC-19.
That's man, I gotta make the joke, man. The Iranians, when they saw this, OFEC 2019, 2025.
Oh, man, and there it goes.
OFEK. OFEC. Sounds like OPEC. Like, is that the oil cartel?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, it might be. Man, it's anyways, we also were able to hear that the Turks are building up their forces against the Israelis, as Turkey reportedly is set to expand its military presence in northern Cyprus from 40,000 men to 100,000 men, citing a growing threat from the Israelis. We'll just leave that up for y'all to interpret however y'all would like. Moving on from that and on over into the United States of America, we've also been able to hear that the United States is now implementing additional sanctions on the Islamic Republic of Iran. We also were able to hear that the president is quite disappointed with Putin. The stock market actually plummeted in Russia as a result of that statement. Moving on, speaking of that, into the Russian Federation, let's get on into that cheery news here. First off, we were able to hear that Gherkin is now claiming that the war is a failure, and according to his own words, it's a disgrace. We didn't break through a single section of the front over the summer. In 16 months, we completed the assault on Chasiv Yar, and at the same time, Ukraine allowed young people to travel abroad. If Ukraine was on its last legs, they wouldn't have started conscripting 16-year-olds, but they are doing well. So it does appear that Gherkin is going to be, as Matthew was saying, getting the electric chair soon in Russia.
Yeah, man. Well, it's like, honestly, it seems like he's begging for it at this point. He must be getting tired of being put up in prison or something like that. He's just getting tired of it. So he's like, get me, come get me or something. He's like, and putting out the craziest statements he possibly could. Why the hell would you be in Russian custody and then put out statements like that unless you were just asking for it?
Man, honestly, I think it's because he's tired of it all. He's tired of the games. Also, we were able to hear the Russian Foreign Ministry's position from Horseface again today. Moscow calls for ensuring a neutral and non-nuclear status for Ukraine. I don't really think anyone was advocating for a nuclearized Ukraine, at least in the world. But also neutral? Nah, I don't know about that. He's pushing. Also, we were able to hear that after the president said that he was disappointed in Putin, just those words alone, that was made on a phone call today, where the president sounded extremely tired and didn't even sound like he was really caring to talk about it. Everything in Russia collapsed. Like, here's their biggest stocks, and they all fell at least about 3% to 2% after that statement. The only one that didn't fall a lot was Transneft.
Yeah, also I like that their top stocks is PIC. Also they have a stock that's just called Fees.
Where the hell's that one?
Oh, right there, right off to the right next to that big gray blob.
This one?
Off to the left of it, man. Not on the gray blob.
Off to the
man,
left.
you were all over the place,
Fees.
man. Right
there it is.
You see the basketball and Fees below it.
Man, also, man, they have one called Aral. They couldn't figure out Iraq or Iran, so they just called it Aral.
They have Uproar over there to the right of Fees.
Man, for upper, they have messaging. They have a flute. Also, man, I love the sickle and hammer that's still on the Aeroflot logo. Really Soviet. And then they
What is Flot?
I don't even know.
It's like they split Arrow into one stock and Flot into another. I thought it was one company.
Man, and then we also have let's see, four. Apparently they're golfing over here. And then they also have let's see, Laco and Rossen and Gesp.
Why do they
And
have Gazprom and Rosneft so small? It's like they're acting like those are small stocks. Just one of some of their biggest companies in Russia. Whatever PIK and 4 is, apparently are major for whatever they are.
yeah, apparently. And also Vico and this one, which I think is Transneft.
Could be. I think so.
I think so, but nevertheless, the Russian stock market isn't doing too well. Anyways, moving on from that, Russians continue to weep, nothing new. We were able to hear that the fuel shortage has hit the mainland. Hey! Fuel shortages inside of the Saratov Oblast have begun. There were Telegram posts about it today, and look at that, there is no gas. Oh no! I guess I don't know what they're going to be doing for gasoline or diesel for that matter now. I don't know. Apparently it's going to be an arrow flop. Get it? It's an arrow flop. Oh man, because the planes bounce. Well, actually they don't. But moving on from that, we also were able to hear that the fuel shortages have increased inside of the Luhansk Oblast, which is currently under Russian occupation. Also, by the way, this track bed here that these trains are riding over in Russia, that's rough. I don't think that's up to the Federal Railroad Administration standards here in America to have the rails literally sinking into the ground, and they're used rails. That's a little bizarre. Anyways,
Также смотрю, продолжается.
look at that queue. It's like 100 cars deep.
Черепахи, конечно, такие веселые.
Narrated by Gollum.
Да уж.
Over here on the right, you can see the tracks are all mingled and they're all torn apart.
Wait, that's not Gollum. That's what the hell's that character's name? What's that little goblin character? It's not Gollum. It's something else.
I think it is Golem.
I don't think it's Gollum. I think it's something else. I can't remember what it is though. Somebody in the chat will know.
Man, honestly,
You wanna
I'm lost. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Schmeigel.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Dobie or something. I don't know. Like it could be any of them. It can't take any of them.
You know, all the other tracks, they're all ripped apart. Oh, what a shame.
that guy's that big like fish-eyed looking actor from like the 30s. You know the one I'm talking about? Oh man, you know they characterized him so much in Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
He's that guy. Like, oh man, it's such a shame. Oh man. But anyways, moving on from that, we also were able to see the Ukrainians conducted some drone attacks inside of Krasnodar. Take a look. Oh, no, get back on the video.
Короче, вот светится. Туда только что, ну чуть подальше в гору прилетел снаряд. Я только что видела, как туда ПВО запускали. Это трясет. Стрёмно везде.
Oh, let's take a look. Oh,
Ебать!
Об твою мать. What doctor? But anyways, here's another clip. Oh my goodness, not another refinery. Damn it. They lost another. Man, Mr. President, there's been a second refinery. Oh, Blair. Moving on.
I'm more like the 30th refinery at this point.
Man, honestly, man, they've lost count at this point, Mr. President. There's, we don't even know. It's just, he's got hit. Oh, God. But here's another one. Oh, the fire, the flame. Oh, my goodness.
Every time I see one of these go up, the gas prices get higher.
Man, I guess you could say that that's a gas prom. Because it's a prom for gas. You gotta court that shit to buy it these days. It's that expensive. But moving on from that, we also got to see that some Russian fuel tanks were hit inside of Crimea. In your Alushta, which you can actually see right here. There you are. Take a look at that. Very nice. Moving on from that and those fuel tanks inside of Crimea, it's time for us to get on into the frontline news inside of Ukraine. So moving on up into the area of Tetkina, we were able to see the Ukrainians conducting some more airstrikes against the Russians hiding out in the town. Oh, here it comes. Are y'all ready? There it is.
Oh. They were sneaky. You couldn't see them, but the Ukrainians did.
Sneaky breaky. Well, that's the end of that clip. Nice to see, though. Moving on from that, and further on down into our location unknowns, we have a couple. First up, we were able to see the Russians losing a whole grad, and I guess you could say that they were very grad about this loss. Or not grad, whichever way you'd like to take it. But look, there it is, the grad. They have a whole 3D animation for that thing. That's actually kind of like pricey. But anyways, here it comes. The crew is hanging out on it. You see them sleeping right there. And no, that's not in a euphemism. They're quite literally sleeping. But now they are sleeping, in the euphemism sense, because the Grant has been sent up into pieces. Reese's Pieces, as a matter of fact. Eat 'em up, eat 'em up, eat 'em up, eat 'em up. Moving on from that, we also were able to see this little Russian assault bike had an issue today. Oddly enough, no one got wounded in this incident, but it was bizarre nonetheless. They're on their way, and then it blows up right in front of his dirt bike, and then he just drives on through. Not wounded or anything. He's fine.
That's crazy. It's like the guy's made of metal or something like that.
And it's like he's made out of iron. Call him Iron Man. And
He's
then
got
he'll
the iron in him.
to ride the dirt bikes in Ukraine, you must have that iron in them. But anyways, we also get to see these T-62s. They're getting ready for the front.
They called them the junkyard edition in the caption. I think that's pretty accurate, actually. This is like a junkyard. It looks like they got like one of those metal like rebar things that you find in a junkyard and they put it in the front. Honestly, I'm not even sure if some of the stuff even has any protection value. Is that a tarp they've got hanging over part of it?
Actually, it's a rubber mat.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that provides any protection value.
I don't think so. Also, I think that those holes are so big that if the drone hit it, it would most likely just disconnect the RPG round from the drone, and the RPG round would still fly through the giant open hole in the grate.
Yeah, I think I've seen better stuff sitting in a junkyard than this. This is pathetic. Like it's almost like they've not really protected the tank. It's more like they disguised the tank as a junkyard. But the only problem is everybody knows that Russia has junkyard tanks. Also, look at this other one over there on the left. They've got like chains hanging down like braids.
Man, I don't even know what to say about that. Is that a freaking is that a tennis court up there?
Yeah, they're going to play ball, but they're on the short end of the stick.
Actually, I'm sorry, correction, everyone. The Russians are too high and mighty and civilized to play tennis. They play badminton, and that's a badminton net up there on top of the tank. But anyways,
And tonight they're going to play cricket though after the Ukrainians are done with them.
that's deep. That's
That's
deeply it. But moving on from that, we also got the Russian casualty reports as well. Look at that. No bobcats.
No bobcats out there.
Oh, goodness. No bobcats. But we also were able to hear from Miss DC Keeper the records that troop losses have been in the 800s for the past 6 days. Shows a downward trend over 40 days. All categories are below the 7-day averages, except for artillery, which rarely disappoints. And I have to agree with Miss DC, it rarely disappoints. But over the past 24 hours, we were able to hear of 800 soldiers wounded and killed within the past 24 hours, along with 4 APCs, 89 supply trucks, 1 main battle tank, 53 artillery pieces, 170 drones, 1 MLRS, and that was it. Still pretty decent day. Not the biggest day that we've seen even recently, but still pretty decent. Moving on from that and on down the front, we got no video or picture evidence from anywhere on the front, except for the Pokrovsk area. We got a lot of it. So moving on into the Pokrovsk area, we were able to see the Ukrainian 93rd, the fighting 93rd, cooking some Russian equipment. Well, it looks like that piece is cooking.
Cooking it up well done. Charbroiled.
Cooking it up.
Extra crispy.
Extra crispy. The kernel's crispy.
You know what's funny about that?
What?
I happen to be within close proximity to where the Colonel started KFC.
Really?
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 I happen to be right down the street from it. And
No.
where was KFC started?
I don't even know.
Utah.
Hold up. No way. No way. It really was. Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yes. What do you know?
No way. I cannot believe that, actually. Also, by the way, folks, I totally forgot to mention, the reason why Matthew is quiet tonight is because he's on a venture right now, and he's away from the Enforcer HQ 2.0, as he is currently on an expedition to find Enforcer HQ 3.0. So
They're working me too hard, folks. They're working me too hard. They got me running around during the day like a rat, going from place to place, talking to everybody, anybody, and everything, and just going crazy. Then at night, they got me working all night, too. They got me flying on planes here and there, yonder. They're just working me too hard these days, I'm telling you.
So also, Matthew, why is it called Kentucky Fried Chicken then if it started in Salt Lake City?
Well, you see, there's this thing called marketing, and I don't think Utah's known for its chicken, so it probably wouldn't have been wise to name it Salt Lake City Chicken.
Well, I tell you something, they could have called it the Brigham Young Fried Chicken, and that would they could have done something like that. But still, that's interesting. Actually, I didn't know that little tidbit of info. I always heard that he started it in the gas station, which he generally got like the recipe for the chicken in his gas station. But I never knew he opened up the first franchise there. Anyways, moving on from that, though, we were able to hear of a Russian convoy getting hit by the 68th Jaegers near the Pokrovsk. Take a look.
Man. Called this. Oh, what was that guy doing? He ran across like he was up to something. This is called this Salt Lake City special right here. They're bringing in the salt and giving it right to the Russians.
Man, they giving them so much salt they can put it in a lake and build a city around it.
Man, I start calling them Morton because they're mining that salt like nobody ever seen.
Man, I tell you.
I have genuinely no idea where I'm going with these right now, but somehow I'm winging it.
Man, he's winging it, I tell you, believe he's winging it. But we can see the artillery pieces ready. And they're dialing her in. Woo-hoo. And we can see that guy yelling for a second. And now they're dialing it in a little bit more.
Here we have missiles in tubes, and it does a really bad job on Russians. It does terrible job.
Oh, and there goes the rockets. Oh, ho, ho.
Someone says the colonel real? Yeah, the colonel was a real guy, by the way. He's not just a character. He was the real guy. The colonel was the brand rep for a long time when he was around.
And also, he's not a real colonel in the military. He's a Kentucky colonel, which is an honorary title given by the governor of Kentucky to citizens of Kentucky that have done significant works. If y'all did not know.
That guy had iron in him. Like, he really did have that iron in him. That guy was crazy.
Didn't he shoot and kill someone at some point?
I don't know for a fact, but I think I heard on the History Channel that he got into some altercation with somebody at some point, which was notorious. I can't remember the details, though.
Unfortunately, I can't remember either. In the meantime, however, we also get to see the Ukrainian Postal Service drop a drone in. Rain, snow, sleet, or shine. Take a look. There's the Russian position. They're about to deliver this thing first day express.
I like that they put the eagle on their little emblem right there. It's like symbolic of America giving them weapons. Look at that eagle flying in.
Oh, and they got it. Oh, that's delicious right there. Phantom. But moving on from that, we also were able to see in our next clip further down the line, the Russians getting hit a little bit more by the Ivan Franko group. And Fighting Fence say, is that like being knighted by a king and get sir in your name? Yeah, pretty much it's the same, but it's just the governor of Kentucky giving it out. I don't really know what significance Kentucky Colonel holds, to be entirely honest. It's quite a little like at least when you get knighted, you're technically at least within the realm, which would be the Commonwealth in the UK, Sir so-and-so. But nobody's gonna, like, I've never heard anyone call a colonel something that's a Kentucky colonel except for Colonel Sanders. And that's because it was a marketing thing.
Right.
But they're slamming him. Look at them go. Dang!
All
Get
under
him
the
again.
watchful eye of what looks to be a Charlie Chaplin impersonator on the right.
Man, that's one of the guys from Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right there. The guy who went, you like the Czech sausage, eh? You know, so, like, that's that guy.
Man, I tell you, that guy, he loves watching these clips right here. He's on every single one.
Man, he just watches them. He goes, it's nice watching Russia's blob, eh? And it's like, well, sure. Like, but anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also get to see some little interesting clip here. Oh, what are they doing? They're in the pipeline. The Russians are using a pipeline again. Yes, they are trying to use it to get into Pokrovsk.
What happened to the little, like, rolling cart things they said they had come up with? Like, they don't even use those.
Ah, man, that's a bunch of BS.
Oh, wait, they're on one.
Oh my god!
Like
Oh my god!
They're on like a train car or something. Look how much clearance that took away from the pipe, man. They squeezed them on the roof.
Honestly, man, I think it would have been better just to crawl at that point.
They're gonna get road burn, like scraping along the top of the pipe all the way down because they want to use a roller cart.
Bro, they're gonna come out and all their skin's gonna be gone. It's just gonna be muscles. Where are they? It's like, bro.
But it was more efficient, yeah, to do it with the mine cart though. You could rip the skin off like at 100 miles an hour instead of like crawling speed.
Dude, the Ukrainian said, "You'll never take Pokrovsk," and that Russian said, not without my mine cart. Not without my pipe sifter. But anyways, we also were able to hear the Ukrainians did liberate Udachne today. We were able to hear about that and see some clips showing that today as well. Very nice to see. We also were able to see further south, which is kind of an extension of the Pokrovsk front, at Constantinople, the 55th Artillery Brigade slamming some Russians, which I like to see it. Of course you would. Why even ask? Oh, there's Ukrainian throne, there's a Russian outpost. It is a combination, a match made in heaven. Oh, look, it's a Russian. Oh, wait a minute, it's his
What the
throne. Oh my goodness, it was his throne. Oh no, now that's a fatal mistake. Fatal mistake. The Ukrainians make him pay, and they did, twofold.
That guy came out and swatted it like he wasn't sure whose it was.
Man. Blood was a little bit confused. Get away! Oh, it's mine, and he took it.
The hiking nut said, I hope those Russians brought canned air to go through the pipe. No, they never do. That's why the Russians go through the pipe and they come out with like some unknown medical disorder that nobody's ever heard of, like called like pipe syndrome or something like that. And they're like, what happened to this man? He's choking on his own spit. And they're like, and they're like, the Russians are like, send 5 more men in the pipe and let's see if it happens again.
Honestly, bro, it's kind of sad. But we also were able to hear that according to the Institute for the Study of War, a very serious offensive by the Russian Federation will begin soon, like that hasn't already been done so far. By the way, I'm just kidding. The Institute for the Study of War is dead on their material for the most part. They're pretty good. But anyways, they are going to be fully occupying the Donetsk region. Elite Russian forces, including paratroopers, which is the VDV, have already begun to be transferred there. I don't really have a lot of high hopes for this offensive. Every single offensive they do is technically a high-end defensive, and they really end up achieving almost nothing. But moving on from that and down into Kherson, we also were able to see that the Ukrainians were destroying some Russian positions on the other side of the Dnipro.
Oh, look, the crab brigade or something.
Man, oh wait, hang on, which one was that?
No, you're talking about crab rave. That's what you're thinking about.
It's the 34th Brigade. They are the crab brigade. I was wanting to make sure which brigade it was. I was like, wait a minute, did they make a new crab brigade? And it was the 34th. I was like, okay, that is the crab brigade. They got crabs. Well, not that way though. Not like that. They got crabs on the emblems.
Like if you get crabs, you're going to get attacked by these Ukrainians right here.
Man, I tell you what, man, the way they came out, that was very sus. So I had to make a quick correction there.
Oh.
Man, as soon as I said it, I was like, people are going to take that wrong. I was like, let me correct that right now. Oh
Man.
my God.
Oh, look at this. Oh, look, driving down the road. That's not permitted. He's going to find out. Oh, HOA just came in. That's a complaint on him. Let's see. Oh, look, a barn.
I think it's going to go.
It was a barn.
It still is a barn. And now it was a barn.
No, it's not. Look, oh, there's just the wall. That roof's strong. That's a strong roof.
It's only half the barn it used to be, literally. Oh, they coming in.
Somebody in there.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone, everyone. And they also got a little radio tower that was built on a tree. I don't know how effective that really was. They also got another one. Oh, they're just slamming them, folks. Look at them go. Look at them go. Oh, that guy, he's just kind of wandering around down there. A little confused. Oh, his position's on fire. That's why he's confused.
And they started a wildfire now.
Only you can start wildfires. But nevertheless, moving on from that, it's time for us to move on out of the Kherson area and on up into Kyiv. Because after 2 hours of news, we finally made it to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine on this day of the war. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці і українки. Коротко про цей день. Військові доповіді були від ранку, зокрема від командувача повітряних сил по збиттю дронів. Наглість росіян стає все більшою. Вони все частіше в день атакують Україну десятками ударних дронів. В ніч на сьогодні було 150 дронів, ранок ще більше 50, ввечері ще десятки. І більшість з них – шахеди. Фактично, групи російських дронів у нашому небі – акомпанемент російським заявам з Китаю. Відверта зневага Росії до усього, що світ робить заради припинення війни. Вчора росіяни буквально заперечували те, що говорив президент Трамп про зустріч лідерів, яка потрібна, щоб закінчити війну. Цими днями в Китаї Путін продовжує розказувати свої байки, начебто він у війні невинний, іначе його хтось завжди примушує воювати, вбивати, заганяти дітей в укриття, посилати тисячі людей на штурми наших позицій. І зараз бачимо чергові накопичення російських сил на деяких ділянках фронту, от тільки до миру він ніяк примушуватись не хоче. Росія продовжує завдавати ударів. Звісно, ми будемо відповідати на це. Відповідати в тому числі асиметрично, щоб Росія точно відчувала наслідки своєї наглості. І ми продовжуємо працювати з партнерами заради тиску на Росію. Це буде. Нічого, крім сил, Росія не чує і брехатиме, поки не буде достатньо сильних її втрат. Всі партнери це розуміють. Важливо, щоб була рішучість діяти. Додаткові санкції, які дійсно впливають, вони потрібні. Тарифи, які обмежують російську торгівлю, і фінансування для російської ж машини війни, теж це все дуже потрібно. Я вдячний всім, хто продовжує допомагати нашому захисту, нашої стійкості. Важливо, щоб зараз, у вересні, наповнення програм з партнерами було не менш інтенсивним, ніж від початку року. Зокрема, програми Pearl за серпень, завдяки європейським країнам, маємо більше 2 мільярдів вже євро на закупівлі саме американської зброї. І в тому числі ракет для Петріотів, ракет для Хаймарсів. Має бути і надалі щонайменше $1 мільярд на місяць в цю саму програму Pearl. Міністерство закордонних справ та наші посли в країнах-партнерах повинні бути дуже результативними. Провів сьогодні достатньо детальну нараду з усіма представниками, які задіяні в підготовці гарантій безпеки для України та в узгодженні кроків з партнерами на підтримку Сил оборони. Команди Офісу, МЗС, військові, головком, Генштаб, секретар РНБО – всі активно працюють, щоб в цьому році і в наступному довгостроково, незважаючи на будь-які російські божевілля, щоб Україна мала достатній захист. І це обов'язково буде. Сьогодні узгодили основу для подальших контактів з учасниками коаліції охочих щодо реального наповнення гарантій безпеки для України. Ми працюємо і дуже активно з командою Сполучених Штатів Америки. Найближчим часом будемо говорити з лідерами країн-партнерів в Європі. Наші формати, зокрема Україна, Північна Європа, також Вашингтонський формат, наповнюємо все це змістом максимально. Триває робота і щодо санкцій з Євросоюзом, Британією, іншими партнерами. Синхронізація санкцій наших та партнерів – це одне з головних завдань на осінь. І ще одне. Регулярно доповідають правоохоронці, Міністерство внутрішніх справ, Служба безпеки, Генеральний прокурор по розслідуванню вбивства Андрія Парубія. Обрано запобіжний захід підозрюваному тримання під вартою без права застави. Все більше обставин злочину з'ясовують правоохоронці. Жахливих обставин. Важливо, щоб суспільство отримало всю встановлену та перевірену інформацію настільки, наскільки це можливо, згідно з процесуальними нормами. Дякую всій команді, яка цілодобово працює, щоб встановити правду. Сьогодні у Львові відбулось прощання з Андрієм Парубієм. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Вічна пам'ять. Слава Україні!
Героям слава.
Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 1287 of the news from around the world, and of course, in particular, the news from the war in Ukraine, as that's how our numbering convention is done here. It's from day one of the war in Ukraine, which is when our daily news coverage started. But nevertheless, folks, I gotta say that wraps up our news for the day, and it's gonna be moving us on into the second segment where we get to talk to all of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what a fun and enjoyable and relaxing kind of a segment this is. It is the moment that we all get to rest on the laurels of our hard work and success tonight of getting to cover all this news and getting through it and get to chit-chat with each other. It's a fun moment, and we do enjoy it a great deal. We hope that y'all stick around. But most importantly, I also have to say a huge shout out to the 165,000 people who have watched this news so far tonight. And also a big shout out to the 11.2 thousand people who are still here 2 hours into this show. That is a long time to be watching. And I gotta thank you for giving so many hours of your time today to me and Enforcer Matt's coverage of this news that's been happening around the world all day today. But more importantly, before we get into that, I also gotta say that y'all watch this channel a great deal. A massive deal, as a matter of fact, to the point that it's actually quite shocking. Me and Enforcer Matt were looking into this show a little bit beforehand, and once again, folks, on Sunday night, we were able to land number 31 in America as a spot on this channel. Whoa. And I gotta say that it's a really crazy and incredible thing to know that so many people continue to watch this channel that's one of the leading voices, not only in the news, but in America altogether. We even beat some prominent names that some of y'all may know. Like, for example, Dr. Disrespect, or Tucker Carlson, who was number 50, oddly enough. We were number 31, Tucker Carlson was number 50. We also beat some other people, some other folks out there. I'm trying to see if I can find them here really quickly. Let's see here.
Man, this chart's getting like a little bit scarce these days. I don't even know who these people are.
Me either. I don't even know who in the hell they are. Who in the world was above us? Let's see here. Oh, the New York Racing Association. Those chronic gamblers. They did beat us that day. They did beat us that day indeed. On a Sunday, no less.
We got beat by steak. I don't even know what that is. Like, it's just literally a picture of Minecraft steak and the word steak.
I'm not gonna lie.
Is that a gaming channel?
I think some people are hungry for protein. But I think so, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Also, no hate to the guy, by the way. If someone's out there's like, oh, he's hating on, I don't know who that is, by the way. So, if they have a channel or whatever, like, I'm not hating on their channel. It's just a joke. Just a joke.
I'm not gonna lie. This is that's kind of shocking. We better not say anything. We might upset his ego. He might say something about us on Twitter. Like you gotta be careful with that. You never know. But beyond that, it's still quite an interesting day indeed. And I gotta say that we thank you all so much for watching our show so much, and we are honored to know that y'all enjoy our channels to such a great degree that we are one of the leading voices in America on YouTube, at least in terms of live streams. But still, thank you so much once again to all of you. I hope that does address that the best that I can, at least how honored we are to have all of y'all here. And it's time for us to move on into the second segment, which is where we get to talk to the folks who have put us on the map where we are right now. And so, Matthew, please, take it away. What do we got?
All right, so it's now time to jump into our final question segment of the night. Now, I must admit that I'm very glad that today's mobile hotspot has worked way better than the last time I left for Utah, because this time it's working perfectly fine. In fact, it's working better than my home Wi-Fi at this point. So I think they've got some good stuff out here where I'm at this time. I must say, very good stuff. But anyways, jumping into our final poll question of the stream, this one says, analysts say that Russia will launch a serious offensive, a serious one, using elite troops. Into Donetsk soon. And what happens? 53% said Russia will gain no ground, nothing. 34% said Russia will gain some ground. And 5% said Ukraine will be in deep trouble now that these elite troops have come out and they're coming at them. I would say this. We've seen what elite troops of Russia can do, and their elite troops are our worst troops in America. So that's not saying much. When Russia says they're bringing out the elite, they're bringing out the top shelf stuff, that means very little to nothing. So I would say And also, here's another thing. Russia just tried an offensive near Pokrovsk. Look how that went. Now, they didn't use their elite forces there. I will grant them that. But that was a very, very strong push they tried to make with a ton of guys, and it backfired tremendously. And now those guys are nearly encircled in some places. So, didn't go too well. These elite troops are not going to help either. And in fact, all Russia's going to do is they're going to waste their elite troops near Donetsk, and then they're going to be without any elite troops at that point. So, Enforcer, what say you?
Look at these stupid guys with their stupid blue berets and their stupid striped shirts, looking like they're from the damn Navy. Like, look at them. I mean, this stuff is ridiculous here. Look at this, the mismatched Ratnik camo patterns. I mean, this is truly a shame here. And also, these are the Belarusian VDV, which look even worse off. Look at them with their stupid striped shirts. But beyond that, also, I gotta say, folks, don't these people with the striped shirts look kind of like the Hamburglar? Let me let me go pull up the Hamburglar. Don't they look like him a little bit? Like, you know, just a tad, to a sense, you know? They kind of look like
They
him.
look like criminals.
They really do. Also, I gotta tell y'all, folks, the blue berets are not it. They need to find a different color. Like, have y'all seen the British Airborne's berets? Like, let me go show y'all that. The British Airborne beret. You know, these maroon ones. I mean, that looks way better. Although that mannequin's nightmare fuel. But these look way better. I mean, absolutely way
The
better.
mannequin has better skin complexion than the real Russian did at this point. The real Russian in the picture back there looks like he has like a disease or something like that. His skin is like extremely red for some reason. Like he has like swelling or something going on. Why are both of their faces like that? These two front guys right here.
Also, man, look at this guy's nose right here. That guy could sniff out some landmines. He might be a bomb sniffing dog. But like this is like, also, man, look at them all. Like, it goes on and on and on. All of them look like they have a skin condition. What the hell's up with this? Like, all of them.
I don't know.
I don't even know. But beyond that,
These guys aren't doing shit. These guys aren't doing nothing. Excuse me, by the way. But these guys right here aren't doing nothing. Like, I don't care how many of these guys have put into nets. It's going to be the same crap they've been going at the whole time. Like, here's my thing. Russia is once again selling this idea that they've been holding back or they've been doing something that they should have been doing the whole time, but now they're deciding to really go for it and put their elite guys on the front lines. How come they've waited until now, until their army's been eviscerated by the Ukrainians, to finally put their elite on the front lines? Why suddenly now is it the time?
Exactly. Also, on top of that, it's not really like the VDV is elite, in my opinion. They've been ground down and rebuilt so many times through the war at this point that hardly anyone who was there in 2022 is there now. Pretty much all of them have been replaced. Also, look at this. Like, I gotta be honest with y'all, U.S. military berets, we do style on them. Like as far as berets, our berets are way better in every single way than their goofy berets. Like, their berets are cheap looking. Our berets go hard. I mean, way better looking. But beyond that, I would have to be entirely frank with y'all. I don't really think that this is going to be going anywhere. I think they're going to end up at the same spot they are right now. Because this is not the first time that the VDV has been involved in an offensive. They were involved in the offensive down near the area of Robotne in the latter part of 2023, the counteroffensive, and it went nowhere. And I'm having a feeling that that's most likely going to be the same around the Donetsk area as a whole. So I would have to be with a large majority. I don't think this is going much anywhere. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the questions themselves. And we got a lot of them. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, the front runner just went by once again. That Utah train out here, it's actually honestly pretty loud. Like, it's actually, I can hear it very clearly where I'm at right now. So very interesting. But also, by the way, like, to all the people out here in Utah and Salt Lake City, by the way, like, I see people like mentioning go to certain places. Sadly, this time I don't have time for literally anything. Like, I am so packed with like my schedule right now. Also, like, damn, like, hold on a second, what the hell's going on? Is that the train or is that something else? That's literally the train. That thing is loud as hell out here. That front runner is loud. Like, that thing is like roaring. But sadly, though, like, back to what I was saying, I don't have any time out here in my schedule. Like, I am packed with like touring places and things like that, trying to find the next place to live. So, and also finding offices, our office as well, which is going to be our house basically. So it's a packed schedule. I'll be honest. I don't have time to like literally enjoy anything out here. It's like literally going nonstop all day long. I'll be straight up honest. I'm exhausted at this point. Like, I got one more day of this, and then I come back. So it's going to be a doozy. Like, getting on that flight again, doing all that stuff. This has been a hell of a trip this time.
I gotta tell you, Matthew, trains are not quiet at all. They're quite loud, especially this one. I believe these are called the Baby Bullet. And I want to find that really quickly for you because that's the only thing the front runners use, and they are known for being loud. Like generally from what I've heard. But there's a variant of this. I think it's like the F59 PHI that's even louder than this thing. But I want to find the
It's
engine.
gone now. It just left. Like it went on by. It's gone. I could hear it coming up, and then I heard it pass, and then it left. This time, it's like a full-on freight train. Like when I saw it earlier during the day, it was literally puffing out like smoke out of the smokestack. It was chugging it like it was going fast.
Man, those things book it. But here's the specific. It is the Baby Bullet, I believe. Let me make sure. This is the Baby Bullet. This should be. At least that's what I've heard it called before. But this is the Bullet. These are the ones used by Metrolink, but you can find them all across the country. They're run by Metra, Metrolink, Caltrain. Hell, this one is in Arizona, I believe. But they're used all over. But these things are freaking insanely loud, like unbelievably loud. But still, they are cool. There's one right there that's a part of the front runner, but insanely loud. Like that's why I was telling you, Matthew. Like when you look at a place, you don't want to be close to the tracks. Like if there is a front runner or a mainline train around, they are loud, really, really loud. So you'll want to make sure to look out for that. But beyond that, though, pretty cool stuff, I'll have to admit. And also the Baby Bullet's neat because of its shape. I mean, just look at the thing. Look at it. It's like
That is pretty neat.
streamlined, you know? It's neat. But anyway,
I'll still say this. I'll still say this because I see LJ in the live chat saying you need to check out this place. I would love to check the stuff out. Like I'm driving around right now looking at different places to live and things like that. And I'm like, damn, like there's something cool over there. I just sadly don't even have the time to stop to even like I don't even have the time to pull over like to actually like just even stare and take a picture of most of the stuff. That's how literally how packed my schedule is right now. So it's tough. I've had to like schedule this very short because we obviously have to keep running our channel here, so I can't be gone for too long. So that's why it's only 2 days I'm out here. So now when we finally get moved in out here, though, I'll be super excited to be able to check some of the stuff out here when we actually have time to like calmly go about it and do it. But it's a cool place out here. I really like Salt Lake.
also it's a really cool place because of this little spot up here. Do you know what this is, Matthew?
The mines, isn't it?
No, this is the Northrop Grumman Innovation Systems Center, and all these little bunkers are running tests inside of them.
Oh, that.
Yeah, it's a huge complex, literally right south of the international airport by about 15 miles or so, but it's inside of the city.
They wanna give me a job?
I don't know. Maybe they do. Like, maybe they
Work
do.
on the side? Well, maybe a sponsorship or something? I mean, well, we need sponsors. I mean, channels need sponsors maybe.
Dude, the bomb that fell on that boat today near Venezuela, right when it was about to hit, they heard the Doppler effect and they heard, this bomb is sponsored by Coinbase. Like slammed right on top of them. But anyways, still interesting stuff, Salt Lake City. Really interesting place. Also, one thing that's quite interesting to me, folks, about Salt Lake City, is that they have... Let me see if I can find this here really quickly, because I found it earlier. I want to see if I can find it again, because it is quite interesting. Oh, dang it. They have a little auto rack loader thing here, by the way, but that's not what I'm looking for. They have an engine shop here. Wait a minute. I remember where it is now. I remember where it is. It's somewhere over here. And... it is somewhere over here. I'm not lying, folks. I'm not psycho or anything. Maybe I am. But I'm trying to find this one place. It's where they manufacture some of the light rail trains for America. It's over here somewhere.
Are you talking about Stadler?
Yeah, Stadler. That's what I'm looking for right now.
Yeah, just type it in. It's a lot easier. I couldn't even begin to tell you where it was.
Let's see. Stadler. Where was this? Oh, I literally passed it. This is where they build all of the Stadlers in the United States. Look at that. That one's for Caltrain. You can tell because of the paint job. This one's for the... this one's also for Caltrain. You can tell because of the paint job. I believe these are technically the Stadler Flirt. So when the trains roll by, instead of being loud and making that woofing sound, they go... holy moly, look at that. And then they keep rolling by because it's a Stadler Flirt. It just makes sense. But these things are pretty cool.
Also, yeah, those are cool. Also, by the way, I see, let's see here. Anthony said, good luck with the recon. Thank you, Anthony. I need it. Honestly, I'll admit, this trip started off rough, like it really did. I took 2 flights to get here. And the first flight was some bad turbulence. The second flight, the turbulence was horrific. Like, I've never really felt turbulence like that. That was probably the worst turbulence I've ever felt on an airplane coming into Salt Lake City. That thing was jumping around. This is like an Airbus A321. This thing was like dropping. It felt like several hundred feet, like every 5 seconds, jumping up, falling, going sideways. It was doing everything. Like the mountains were creating some crazy wind. The turbulence was so bad that the girl that was sitting behind me got up, ran to the front while the plane was trying to land, and had to go, do what she had to do in the bathroom. It was so bad. It was rough. Like, even, I'll admit, like, I was even kind of jumping around my chair a little bit myself. Everybody was looking around like, whoa, is this normal? I was like, hell no, this ain't normal. That thing was jumping. But that the throwing up thing, I don't like to be in the proximity of anybody doing that. It makes me feel like I might be about to do that myself. But it was rough coming in.
It makes him feel unwell. But beyond
Man,
that,
it does. Like, it does, doesn't it? Like, when you're in proximity to something like that, it makes you feel like you may not have been feeling that bad before, but when you see or hear something like that, you kind of feel like that yourself.
honestly, I don't feel like that until I actually see it. Like I can hear it and I can like see it from afar, but if I'm up close seeing it, then that's when it gets me. Like that's when I can't handle it. Beyond that, I'm fine. Like I'm not fine with it. It's not like something I enjoy, but I can tolerate it a little bit. But yeah, like flights are like a hit or miss kind of a thing with the turbulence. Like they can be kind of questionable. I remember one time, folks, when I was landing in Birmingham. And that was the trip I took out to Seattle earlier this year. When I was flying in, they came flying in from about this way, just about around Center Point and Trussville. They came flying into the runway, and the winds were really strong. What were they, Matthew? Like 35 knot winds or something like that in the area, or something like that. It's like the max that's
I think there was an
allowable to land.
airport warning out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I came in that. Oh my God, folks! I thought I was going to die. Also, so we're flying in, right? Like we're flying in from the Trussville area, which is right here, to this runway right here. So while we're flying over, the plane is going insanely slow. The engines are going at full speed. The aircraft is literally turning like 30 degrees, like a 30-degree list to the left and then a 30-degree list to the right, just in seconds, and it was doing that endlessly. And then you could feel the plane slow down and then drop a couple of 100 feet and then keep going. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, this is terrifying. And then I started looking down and I could see the hood below me, and I knew if the plane crashes, the chances of survival are low. If it crashes down there, the chances of survival are even lower. I was like, this is a lose-lose. The plane landed, but everyone on the plane's knuckles were bare white, and everyone was looking around, sweating and laughing and stuff after we landed, but everyone was terrified. It was the scariest landing I think I've ever seen, because even the flight attendants were rattled after we landed, which told me that it had to have been pretty bad. It had to have been about as bad as it gets.
I had Cowboy Jane flying my plane on the way into Salt Lake City. She got on the intercom from Dallas, which was the connecting airport. And she got on the intercom. It's like, yeah, I've been flying planes for a long, long time. I've been flying this for a long time. When the flight attendants tell you something, just have a seat. I was like, damn, okay. I was like, I've never heard of an announcement like that quite before over the radio from a pilot. But I'm like, I guess, honestly, when I hear somebody talking like that, I'm like, okay, they may sound a little bit like curt, but they probably know what the hell they're doing. That's like Cowboy Jane up there flying the plane. I'm not sure if she was handling the turbulence that well, to be perfectly honest, because that thing was jumping around like crazy, although there's not really much they can do about it. But that plane was jumping. I mean, it was really jumping. The flight attendants had to sit down and they weren't allowed to get up during the whole thing.
Man, that's crazy right there. I remember my flight to Charlotte was like that actually for the most part, especially from Seattle all the way to about Nebraska was like that. And then afterwards they're like, okay, everyone can get up and get around. And then they did that because they were trying to let you exercise and get your stretches in to deal with the hellhole that is Charlotte International Airport. Like that is the worst airport known to man. I hate that airport. Because every single time they bring you there, every single time. And Matthew got to experience it as well. They'll bring you into this gate right here, which is A gate or A terminal. And they'll be like, okay, everyone, your connecting flight is all the way over here. Good luck. And then you got to run like 2.5 miles through this airport. Nothing else to help you. Like no little like shuttle trains or anything like that, or even like the speed walking things. None of that to help you. You have to do the whole entire thing just legging it as fast as you can through the airport. And they'll give you like 20 minutes or so to be able to get to the other side of the airport before that plane takes off. So you have to get there in like 10 minutes. So you have to do like 4-mile minutes through the airport to get to your connecting flight. Absolutely insano stuff. Like, that's why I hate Charlotte. Also, doesn't anyone think, isn't that a little stupid? Like, the whole airport was designed symmetrically, right? Like, you look at it, these terminals, the main ones up here, are all designed with a symmetrical pattern. And then these are as well, to some degree. And then they went, you know what, F it, let's F design. Let's just, build this however the hell we want, and we'll put it all the way over here. That's pretty much the entrance of the airport. You gotta figure out how to get over there. It's stupid. It's stupid as hell. And I remember someone saying to me, because I hadn't flown a lot, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to be flying back from Charlotte to here. And they're like, oh, buddy, you're in for a trip. And I was like, yeah, it can't be that bad. It was that bad. It was the first time anyone had ever hyped anything up, and it was true. Also, their parking lots situation is insane, too. This airport seems to have no concept of design to it at all. Everything seems to be the most inefficient possible.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It has no concept of it, because I remember running through that place just panicked. And then also the people that work there are rude as hell too. They're competing with Atlanta for rudeness when it comes to like people just being really like, honestly, just jackasses, really, like the way they are. Like I ran across, I think it was like 3 or 4 people in there I had to talk to figure out when the plane, where the plane was going to be at the terminal. And every single one of them was like horribly rude. It's like to the point where it's like, damn, man, what the hell's your problem? It's like, why are you that rude? And then I'm like, and then in Atlanta, you got people trying to scrap in Atlanta, like when you're trying to get your bag, but at least they're not scrapping at Charlotte. It's not quite that far.
Yeah, like someone could throw your bag in Atlanta, you'd be like, hey, bro, why'd you do that? You want to throw hands? It's like, honestly, if this wasn't an airport, probably. It's like if I wasn't gonna get in like serious trouble, I mean, yeah, like, but I'm in an airport.
Bad. It happens often when the other airport workers walk up and talk about, don't do it, man, don't do it. It's federal. It's gonna go federal. It's like, what? It's like, y'all thought about this before? It's like, y'all thought about the charges and what it's gonna be? It's like, that tells me it's happened before.
Man, I was like, damn, that's crazy. Especially when the cops don't even help you out at all, and they're literally standing right there watching the whole thing, and then they don't help you either. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this.
And
is
there's
just
rude as airport workers.
Yeah, that's why, folks, I call Atlanta International Airport Ratlanta International Airport, because that is a terrible one. I would not recommend. Charlotte, though, is worse. Charlotte's actually worse, in my opinion, than Atlanta. One airport that was surprisingly nice, though, is the one in Detroit. That one is oddly enough really nice. Very nice, to the point that it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because when you're flying in, you can see it looks like an abandoned Rome around the airport. Like, there's nobody living out there hardly. And then you land in the airport, it's like insanely nice. They bring you to these terminals here, and you have to get to this one. This one's the domestic flights. These are the long-range national or international flights. So a little bit weird with that. That was bizarre, and I was really shocked.
I would probably say out of the rank of airports I've been to, Dallas would probably be number 1. And not that it's the best airport in the world, but just from the ones I've been to, Dallas would probably be number 1. Number 2 would be the Birmingham airport. Like, surprisingly, Birmingham's airport is actually kind of calm. Like, it's actually kind of nice. But it's not a very big airport, though. It's pretty small. Number 3, I would say, well, actually, put number 2 as the Salt Lake City airport. Salt Lake City airport is probably one of the nicest airports I've been to, actually. But it's a smaller airport, too. It's not massive, but it's newly renovated and very nice. Actually, let me take that back all the way together. Salt Lake City airport's number 1, actually. Dallas number 2. Then you got the other one I just mentioned, Birmingham number 3. But those are pretty decent airports. There's some terrible ones and there's some good ones too.
I would say that one of the ones that is competing for worst place is that one in West Palm Beach, Palm Beach International. That one was actually kind of like rough.
I didn't think there was anything that bad about that one, honestly.
Yeah, except for the whole thing about the security checkpoints is after all of the food stores. So if you go through the security checkpoint, you literally can't get anything to drink or eat until your flight. Remember that?
No, that's not true. Because remember, we got something to eat behind the line. It was just that some of them were in front of the line.
Oh yeah, that is true. But I still find that weird. I don't like this airport. I have a thing against it. Like no logic to it. I just didn't like it that much. I just think I don't like that airport because West Palm Beach wasn't really like that. Like, you know, like honestly, the whole area around Miami wasn't really that. Like, there's a really nice beachfront, and then everything else is just in an utter state of disrepair down there. It's insane. It's like what you would imagine a place like North Korea to look like. You know, where Pyongyang's really nice, but everything else is run down. That's what the entire Miami metropolitan area was like. Like the beachfront was really nice.
Take them to the swamp.
Finna take Shouty to the swamp. And Matthew didn't believe me about this place being a swamp until you went down there and he was like, oh, this is a swamp. I was like, yeah. I was like, you can tell. You can really tell. But let's see. If I had to rank the airports I've been to, I would say that Dallas is probably number one. I'd say it's probably the nicest in the country that I've ever been to. Let's see. I would say
If you went to
that,
Salt Lake City, you put it as number one if you went to that one, but you hadn't been to it yet.
yeah, we're about a C. We're about a C. I would say that Birmingham would be my number two. Number three would most likely be LAX. It wasn't that bad. It was
Ugh.
like, well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't
That
too
was
bad.
awful.
Well,
It
actually,
was
no,
awful.
no, no,
The
no.
design
Actually,
of the thing was bad. It was tough.
actually, number three would be Detroit. Detroit wasn't too bad. Detroit was like also easily navigable too because it was literally just like long straightaways.
And
And
Los Angeles, LAX was awful. Like you walk out of that airport and you immediately have to go find a shuttle to get to the Uber spot if you're trying to get like a car out of there
oh no,
or
I
something.
didn't.
It was worst design ever.
Well, I mean, but at the same time though, I mean, LAX isn't that bad, you know.
It's just famous. That's the problem with it. Like I get the fame behind it. Like it's like Los Angeles' airport, so it's like, oh look, it's LAX, and everybody always name drops it and stuff. But for the design of like how to get around the thing, it's awful. The congestion's horrible. The traffic's not routed properly, and they don't even let the Ubers come up to the front of the airport because it's so crowded.
Seattle wasn't too bad except for that done for the day guy. He was an asshole.
They had some rude people in Seattle, man. I don't know what was up with them. That
Man,
was shocking, actually.
every time I went through there alone, it was fine. When I went with
It
you,
was
it
me.
completely changed. Like it was
I
something.
triggered them.
Man, you triggered them, bro. Like you triggered them on that. But Seattle wasn't too bad in my opinion. I found it to be fine. Let's see, another airport. The three that I hate the most would be Atlanta, West Palm Beach, and Charlotte. Those are the ones that I can tell y'all are the worst by far. Like those airports, if you can avoid them, avoid them. For connecting flight reasons, don't use them. So that's what I did. That's my 2 cents on airports. I'm soon, by the way, folks, just to let y'all know, the streams will be down from September 7th to the 10th, because I'll also be on an adventure as well, to the same degree that Matthew's doing. So the streams will actually not be running coming this Sunday to the next Wednesday. But I will be
The
able
next,
to.
you mean that Sunday till that Wednesday, not the next Wednesday.
Oh yeah. So the 7th to the 10th, from that Sunday
Yeah.
to that Wednesday, there will not be any streams because I will be away. So and also
Only 3 days off.
yeah, it's only 3 days off. It's not that bad. It's not that bad, folks. Done for the day. Done for the day. But I'll be able to speak to the length about some other airports, including the one at Salt Lake City. So we will see. We will see. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Kind of like a little interesting side foray into the whole deal of airports. But then there's a whole other category of thing that has to be looked into, which are railroad stations, which are not really that used, and we're not going to do that rabbit hole tonight. But you can rank. I honestly think that train stations, in my opinion, especially the big and well-built ones, are better than airports, like for their architecture and everything. But that's a whole other rabbit hole for a whole other time, because Jesus, folks, that's a deep one. Like deeper than the airports, really. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, Brian Gonzalez said, right as the war's about to break out, I hope you'll be on breaking if it happens. Look, if the war breaks out while the enforcer's gone, we're going to have to figure out something because we can't just not cover it. So if I got to do a solo stream then to cover something like that, we're just going to do a solo stream or find a way to get the enforcer on here because we can't miss that. That's going to be a doozy if it gets missed. So yeah, if the war breaks out between Venezuela, that's going to be something. We'll find a way to cover that. Like, will you trust us on that? We'll either do a video on it, a live stream that's impromptu or something, because that would be a huge one to miss that. So I'll be honest with y'all. I don't think something's going to break out that quick with Venezuela. I think they're going to keep doing some posturing for a while until then, but it could happen in the next few weeks, I would say.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't think it's going to happen while I'm away. And also, if it does happen, our probable best path of action is just a video, because I will have literally no way to be able to stream. My setup is a permanent one that I have in a studio, so it's not really something that I can just pop up in a hotel room within like an hour and get going. And also on top of that, there's a lot of work things that I'm having to do as well on this trip. So it's not really like I can just, go, oh, let me cancel all that, because it's also HQ finding stuff and run a show. Because, if we don't have an HQ 3.0 coming up in, October, then that's going to cause even greater issues about what the hell's the stream doing for the rest of all time. So we'll most likely do a video on that instead of a stream. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And jumping back into our super chat questions, this one goes to Anthony Wilson. And thank you very much, Anthony, for that second support of the night. And he said, how concerned should one be in the coming 2 years about Chinese missiles as someone living 2 kilometers from a major JPN airport?
I would say that Chinese missiles shouldn't be that big of a concern in Japan, because of Japan's constitution, they can't really get involved in the war unless if they are directly attacked. So that means that they most likely wouldn't be targeted much at all, and if anything was targeted, it would be U.S. bases in places near to Fukuoka or Okinawa or somewhere similar. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, Anthony. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also cool to hear that you are in Japan. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to VS, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, VS, as well, for that support. And he said, traveling from Orlando to Kharkiv for a UAF officer's wedding soon, 225 weddings a week there, and the UAE spirit is unbreakable. And any tips for symbolic gestures of respect that we can make along the way?
And I thank you so much for the support, VS, and that is really cool to hear. I hope it's a fun time. Unfortunately, I wouldn't know of a lot of Ukrainian cultural signs of respect to be able to give. You could possibly try and take a trip to Kyiv and plant a flag at the Fallen Soldiers park for the larger part, where they honor the fallen soldiers. You could do that. But unfortunately, I wouldn't really know a lot of respectful things to do culturally in Ukraine. Because I'm not really accustomed to their culture to that sort of a degree to be that in depth or in the know about those sorts of cultural do and don'ts. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to John Murray, and John puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, John, as well, for supporting the channel and helping to keep it running. He said, I was a drill sergeant, and yes, we still teach drill.
And I thank you for support, John Murray, and I pulled it up, and it appears that it never really stopped. And the reason why
Man,
I said...
I told you.
Man, you did tell me. But the reason why I said that, Matthew, is because you know who, whoa, look at that boiler, made a whole video like years ago talking about they were giving it up. But honestly, I shouldn't have listened to that guy, because he kind of just like bitches and moans about everything, even if it isn't happening. So that probably wasn't the best source of info I could get for that, but it is what it is. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it looks like I'll have to get my info better sourced than people who make their whole living about complaining about the service, which I don't really know why. And they also dog on everyone who's in the service currently. It is like, I know a lot of people who are in the service, and it's really disrespectful to just dog on them. It's like they are the current defenders of the Republic. It makes no sense to diss on them, because they are the ones who are going to be defending that guy and me at the end of the day if a war broke out. So anyways, with that, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would never be able to make this channel possible and keep it rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But before we move on to the next one, I do want to make a quick note, folks, that we do not allow religion or politics in here. And also, folks, really quickly, I gotta say this, this is one I don't really know if people are going to be happy or not to hear, but I just want to make this a little bit clear. This channel revolves foreign policy around what's in American interests. Now, with that in mind, if your entire foreign policy thing boils down to the Bible says this, or my leader of my party says this, and there isn't really a lot of an explanation beyond that as to why you support the thing, that's not really analysis. That's just grandstanding and hoopla, and I'm not really a big fan of that sort of thing, just on a personal level, because that doesn't really make a lot of that doesn't really make a lot of sense, just to be entirely honest. So Just want to put those 2 cents out there. That's not really how this channel runs, nor will it ever. And also the rule stands: no religion or politics. So if you use religion or politics, like, blue guy or red guy said this, so I'm all for it, no reason explained, or you say the Quran or the Bible or something says this, or the Torah, that's not really a foreign policy sort of a standpoint to work off of, because how does that actually impact the United States in a positive or negative way? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And, excuse me, I was trying to get some water there, but you stopped your sentence extremely quick, so I was trying to gulp it. But this next one here goes to Amex10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Amex10, for that support as always, and being a long-time channel legend. He said, is anyone talking about the Zapad exercises launching an invasion into the Kyiv Oblast, or is that not likely?
I would have to say that a lot of people are considering that that's unlikely at this moment, because relocating a force like that is a fairly difficult thing to do at this sort of a short notice. You would have to load them all up by train and then ship them on down into southern Belarus near to Gomel, which is the complete opposite side of the country in Belarus. So generally, a lot of people are considering that to be logistically infeasible, especially for the Russians. And I also would be in that camp. I think it's logistically infeasible, and for that reason, the chances of an invasion in northern Ukraine are incredibly small. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for supporting AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang and being an old guard and longtime legend of the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And also, really quickly, I'm going to address this because I see some people going, yeah, if I want to talk about this, it's my right. Not on this channel. like I want to make that a little bit clear. You have a constitutional right to talk about that. So if you want to go into a town square, or if you want to abide by the terms of service of YouTube, you can go make your own channel and talk about it. But here on this channel, we have rules. This is a channel of laws, and I like to hold and adhere to our sorts of rules and standards. Also, really quickly, I got to say this because this is something that I find really annoying. Nothing about politics, like following blue guy or red guy or being religious, has really much of anything to do with our foreign policy standpoints, because some people say, and this is one that I find a little bit annoying, because I support Israel, but for strategic purposes of the United States, something that is tangible, that will benefit the Republic. Other people will say, well, my religion, because I wanted to interpret it this way, says this and that, about supporting the Israelis. And if it says that if you don't support the Israelis, your country will crumble and not prosper, then why in the world do the same people who believe that, just to say this really quickly, also say that China is leaps and bounds ahead, considering that the Chinese armed the Iranians, which are trying to kill the Israelis? That generally seems to fly in the face of that sort of a logic, especially considering that a lot of people that say that we have to support the Israelis because of my religious beliefs also then look at the Chinese and go, look how far ahead they are. They're 50 years ahead of us. It's a contradictory belief, because the Chinese do not like the Israelis, nor do they wish them well. They want to kill them, much like the Iranians do and the Russians do. And yet people want to say the Russians and the Chinese are economically doing just fine. And there are a lot of the people who say that we have to support the Israelis for religious purposes. Well, I'm more under the camp that we support Israel because of strategic interests, like we really do. It has nothing to do with politics or religion, or whether the New World Order wants you to do something or not. It's the fact that the Israelis are pretty much on an island as far as ideology goes inside the Middle East, which means they're forced to be our ally because they really have no other option. And on top of that, we can kind of do a little bit of proxy bidding, at least from their extent, for the United States within the region without us having to dirty our hands, at least in some instances.
Oh, what are you regulated? I mean,
Why are you
are you
regulated?
regulated?
Oh, why are you regulated? But
That's an L take, bro.
Oh, I thought you weren't regulated. I mean, are you regulated?
also another thing, one more thing, folks. I gotta say this. Some people kind of missed us a little bit. The U.S. First Amendment, because I'm truly, I like to say that I'm a patriot to the fullest extent. So I try and make sure that I follow what the original concept of the country was. The First Amendment says the government will not make any sort of an act that encourages or promotes one religion over another. And while I myself am a Christian, I am not under the pretext that this country is a religious theocracy or some sort of a Christian-led country. A lot of the founding fathers were of the Enlightenment era, which is an era where a lot of people really didn't have that kind of a closely connected faith where it was supposed to be a Christian-led theocracy. That's why the freedom of religion exists. And I believe that Americans ought to have the right to believe whatever they want as far as Christianity is concerned or any other religion. And I don't really think the government should be getting involved in making foreign policy decisions off of the Quran or the Bible or the Torah said so, because that seems to be a very un-American position based off of what the founding fathers originally intended. Just to say that up front. Because you'll never see in anyone's logic for anything that was formed back then, or any of our foreign policy decisions when the founding fathers were alive, was we're going to do this and that because the Bible said so, or the Torah or the Quran. None of them said that at all, because hardly any of them were really that entrenched into it. So that's not really how I like the idea of foreign policy working. It should have some sort of a tangible interest, and it shouldn't be something that we're trying to come up with because of theology or some sort of political ideology. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next one here, our next super chat. This one goes to none other than Foxglow, and Foxglow puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Foxglow, for supporting the channel and helping to keep us running. And they said, in World War II, Allied manpower and production advantages won the war, and Germany and Japan having a strong tech advantage was just not enough. And today, India, China, Russia, and North Korea have a very strong production and manpower advantage.
And I got to thank you for the support, Foxglow. And that is true, that in an industrialized era, that did help out a lot, and still nowadays it certainly would. That's a big thing. But America is the second largest industrial manufacturer in the world, and if we did convert all of our manufacturing to wartime manufacturing along with the Europeans, we actually could hold it out. And pretty much fight it with the best of them if we switched entirely to a war economy. On top of that, we also have the primacy of our armed forces to go off of in the first place, which is second to none in Europe and the United States combined. So while I don't want to say that we're overconfident, I would say that at least industrial in the modern day, we still could swing it with the best of them. And also, a lot of Chinese factories really aren't geared to doing a lot, at least in terms of war production. We have at least kept up some strategic industries in the United States and made sure to keep them around or keep them alive for a larger part. Because it's a fairly important thing. I'd have to agree with you, Foxglow. But that also is a bit of a concern. But the thing is that we can only do so much about that, especially in a globalized economy like we have these days. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a super chat from Dupper Bob, another longtime channel legend, and he puts in a 10. And Dupper said, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine, Hurram Slava. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible, Dupper Bob. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Barnaby Alex, who puts in a 10. He said, I posted this in the AP News coverage of Xi's parade. A hug is always the right size. Winnie the Pooh.
And I gotta say, thank you for the support. And I gotta say that that's a pretty good one. You probably got them banned now in China. They're probably already banned in China, really. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Burnaby Alex yet again, and he puts in another 10. And thank you, Burnaby, for the second support. He said, the forbidden lyrics were banned. I'm going to say this as monotone as I possibly can. Winnie the Pooh, tubby little chubby, all stuffed with fluff. He's Winnie the Pooh. Oh, he's Winnie the Pooh. Willy-nilly, silly little old bear.
I gotta say, that's some real good lyrics. I gotta tell you, they just don't sing stuff like that in the Corps anymore. That's deep.
I mean, when they stuffed him with fluff, I mean, was that at Paris Island or was that during training? I mean, call him a stuffed, but call him a taxidermy. But I can't even finish that one. I can't even do it.
Well, I do thank you for the support and helping this show to keep it running. I gotta say, that was a pretty good one, Burnaby Alex. I like that one. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, Oh man, I gotta tell you, man. I don't know if you're seeing what some people in the chat are saying, but just gotta say this really quickly, folks. For some people who are disagreeing, like I don't really understand like where folks are coming from with this, but because your religion says something does not mean that that is so. At least in terms of how the country works. It's a great thing that you believe it. You have a right to believe it and follow that 100%. But the government is not a religious theocracy. The government doesn't work off of what your religion says in particular. It's supposed to just work off of what's in the inherent interest of the country, which just because you think that your religion says something does not mean that that's in the inherent best interest of the country. That's why the government is not supposed to be a religious theocracy. I think a lot of people kind of miss that point these days, in that the government is not supposed to get involved in anything religious. You have a right to believe and practice whatever religion you would like I do. I'm a Christian. But at the same time, that does not mean the government is supposed to go, okay, because you are a Christian and you like being a Christian, we're now going to make our decisions entirely based off of Christianity. Because if you open up that kind of a box, then that means they could go, okay, now we're going to do everything by Sharia law with Islam, or we're going to do everything by the Torah. And then that starts to become a really questionable sort of a territory to get into, because it's a double-edged sword. And I don't think a lot of people are really understanding that side of a thing. And that's why the founding fathers made it that way. And then some people are going to say, but the country was only Christian back in the day, and it was not the way you think it is now. People didn't get along like they do now. Like, Protestants and Catholics generally hated each other during that time, and Maryland was generally a Catholic state, and every other state was generally some version of a Protestant sect that also hated each other a lot, like the Quakers, and so on. So what they did, so they said, because everyone is a different version of Christianity and nobody can get along, we're just going to say that the government won't even recognize any sort of religion whatsoever or any sort of Christianity. We'll just let people do whatever they want, but that's not going to be the government's wheelhouse. That's kind of where a lot of people start to miss the whole boat here. Is that if okay, so let's say it is going to be a religious theocracy. So what specific sect? Then it starts getting into splitting hairs from there. Is it going to be Baptist? Is it going to be Catholic? Is it going to be Sunni or Shiite? What's it going to be? And then we get into that, and then that becomes a whole other issue. Folks, you got to understand, folks. The country has existed and thrived the way it is because we allow people the individual liberties and freedoms to practice whatever specific sect of Christianity or whatever a specific sect of any other religion they'd like, and the government doesn't get involved in that and doesn't touch it. And in terms of everything that the government does, domestic and foreign, I think that's a pretty good standpoint to be on. But with that, we are on.
How come on the bill though it says "In God We Trust" on the bill?
That was something added in the 50s. That wasn't anything. Like, we wanted to divide ourselves from the communists because the communists didn't profess a specific religion. So your boy Eisenhower was actually the one who added "one nation under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance, because before that it was "one nation indivisible," and it just skipped straight to indivisible. And we also put "In God We Trust" on the dollars, because before that wasn't there. Like, let me go pull up a dollar bill from 1920 as an example. So let me see here. Let me go grab this. Let's see here. I need to find one in particular. Let's see here. Damn, where is it? Here we are. This is, let me see if I can get a bigger one. Let's see here. Here we are. So, here is a 1920s $20 bill. And as you can see, there's no "In God We Trust" on it anywhere.
I said,
So that was all added afterwards because the communists openly profess atheism as pretty much the state religion, because atheism is also a religion, funnily enough. So we were like, how in the world do we differentiate ourselves from the communists? Because up until then, the United States had never recognized any sort of religion. So then we started adding "God We Trust" or "one nation under God" to everything. But before that, it wasn't the case. Because back in the day, people militantly prescribed to the idea the government shouldn't touch anything religious whatsoever. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least with as much as I can. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and jumping into our next super chat here, this one goes to Andrew, who puts in a 10. And he said, "Hello from New Zealand, and thanks for keeping us updated in LSA."
Hey, and thank you so much for supporting LSA. A huge thanks to you once again, Andrew, for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Diesel, and Diesel puts in a 10. He said, John something. I'm not sure who this is, though. I'm scared to say his name without knowing who he is.
Let's see here. Yeah, well, yeah, it's probably best not. It's probably best not to say it outright. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again in helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to WS, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, WS, for that support. And they said, what that Russian coot do? It flies around Alaska. Has it been spying and flying by Alaska again recently? And of course, coffee, pizza, and truck, moving fund, and LSA.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I'd have to say that it's a, let's see. It's been a while since the coot's shown up, actually. It's been a little bit. We haven't heard of it recently, but it appears to have been conducting some sort of a reconnaissance operation of a sort. And so generally that's what we're believing at the moment. So also, thank you for the supporting the moving fund. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. Also, Matthew, what were you about to say?
You're saying so many times, man. You said it like 50 times on the row. I was like,
because I'm looking at what people are saying in the live chat, and I'm like, where the hell are these people getting this from? Like, really, goodness. Let me go pull this up. We're gonna have a little teaching moment. This is the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Okay, someone said God is mentioned by a word. No, he's not. Let's see here. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for people to solve political bands that have connected them with one another, and to assume the powers of earth, and separate in equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. Notice that it doesn't say the Christian God; it says nature's God, because I took a little bit of a thing called a history degree. I have a bachelor's in history, so I had to study this whole thing, because religion in the United States was actually something that I took a class in, several of them. And one thing that is a little bit interesting is that the Enlightenment thinkers did, a lot of them, especially Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the main authors of the Declaration of Independence, did not actually believe in the Christian God. He believed in this greater creator out there who was like a clockmaker, which was a very big thing in Enlightenment thinking, that there was some sort of a greater being or a power out there that made everything, but it wasn't the Christian God in particular. So notice that it says of nature's God. It doesn't say of the Christian God, and that's a very important sort of a thing to make clear. You'll also notice
go to Article 7.
Well, really quickly, I'm in the Declaration right now, not in the Constitution yet, but also that they are endowed by their creator. This right here, their creator. It doesn't say of the Christian God and Jesus Almighty. It says their creator. Because, once again, Thomas Jefferson specifically, and a lot of the Enlightenment thinkers like Benjamin Franklin, didn't directly believe in a Christian God. They just believed in some general creator out there in the universe at large that made everything, not the Christian one. So that's why it says by their creator. If you look into the founding fathers a little bit more, like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and a lot of the more influential people, some of them, like Thomas Paine, were actual raving atheists, or at least influential voices at the time. And if you look at the others, like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, they were enlightenment believers, and more so agnostic, if you could describe them that way, instead of atheistic, but they also weren't dead on Christians either. So that's what a lot of people aren't really getting here. Also, what were you saying about Article 7 in the U.S. Constitution?
Article 7 of the U.S. Constitution, it says the year of our Lord in that part.
But that's how the measuring was done. Anno Domini is Latin for in the year of our Lord. That's just how the naming.
Yeah, but that means something, though. It's not just the naming convention. It actually has meaning behind it.
Well, yeah, but we were working off of the Julian calendar, which works off of that. Like, unless we were going to come up with a whole new calendar like the Juche calendar, that's just how you say the year name.
Let's see here. Let's see. What does that mean? I don't know. I'll have to do research on it later, but we're getting deep. We got to get onto our questions.
Like AD, which was used at that time, is Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord. That's just the date. Like we like the nation used the Julian calendar. Everyone in the Western world used the Julian calendar. So even if you were, like, for example, Islamic, because they also used the Julian calendar, they say AD and did for a while before they changed it to I think it's CE, which is Common Era, but they also used Anno Domini as well to some extent for some time. So that doesn't really mean, like, you believe in the Lord. It just is that you're using the Julian calendar, and that's how they denote time, is before and after Jesus' death. But it doesn't really have anything to do with you, like, yes, I believe in Christianity, and we're Christian, so we're going to use this calendar. It was like the only calendar being used. So with like, unless you wanted to be like the Soviet Union and make a whole new calendar, North Korea, where you create a Juche calendar, it's literally impossible to not use the Julian calendar. It's the one we still use right now. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robert Betancourt. And Robert is throwing a $100 donation. And thank you very much, Robert, for that massive support, by the way. That is one of our largest, that's actually the second largest support of the night. And we do sincerely appreciate that very, very much. And Robert said, California electrify and improve 117 federally recognized tribes and 40 unrecognized tribes. And what is one man's junk is another's treasure.
Thank you for the support, Robert Betancourt, and that's interesting to hear. I actually didn't know about that development, and that's a very interesting one. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep this thing rolling. So a massive, huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Tom Xman, who puts in a 10. And Tom said, can you do a train rabbit hole on the new NE 160 mile-an-hour Acela train? And also, did the new Baltimore tunnel get completed?
Yes, I can do a little rabbit hole in this because it finally entered revenue service after years of delays. The Avelia Liberty is actually made by Alstom, which is a large rail manufacturer in France that has famously produced a lot of other high-speed trains like the TGV, if I'm not mistaken. Now, let me check that really quickly. Actually, they produced the Class 373 Eurostar, and let me see here. What else have they made? Oh, yeah, the TGV-M, which is pretty much the French version of the Avelia Liberty. It's almost the exact same to a degree. And a million others, but we won't go through all of them. But they do have some experience in building high-speed trains. So the Avelia Liberty is pretty much the American version of this. Unlike the TGV in France, ours isn't bi-level, it's a unilevel coach, and these engines can reach track speeds of 165 miles per hour on current infrastructure within specific areas. So it's not going to 165 miles per hour the whole way because there are some tighter turns, but on some of the straightaways, it can get up to 165. So it's pretty cool that it can do that, and generally what it's doing, it's replacing the Acela, which I don't actually know who made the Acela, but let me see here, the Acela, and it uses the, let's see here, what engine? Rolling stock, the Acela Express right here, which was made by who? Alstom and Bombardier. So actually it was made by the two of them. These are incredibly old at this point, and they're being phased out, quite literally removed from service at this point, and the Avelia Liberty will be replacing them. So that generally is the best thing I can say about them at this point. A lot of people are ridiculing it and saying the U.S. finally entered the late 90s in high-speed rail. Which is kind of true to an extent. Technically, this is the most modern and cutting-edge high-speed train we could get in terms of tractive effort and also the electrical power that the actual lead units provide. But in terms of the amenities provided inside of the Avelia, they do leave some things to be desired, especially compared to high speed around the rest of the world, like in Japan or elsewhere. But still a really cool engine, and it's great to see that Amtrak finally has made some progress with that. And as far as the Baltimore tunnel, I couldn't tell you how that's coming off the top of my head. I haven't been following a lot of the Northeast Corridor infrastructure news. Generally, I follow a lot of regional stuff here in the Southeast, like the upcoming Norfolk Southern Union Pacific merger, but I wouldn't be able to tell you about that one. But I do know that they're working on a lot of infrastructure projects in the whole of the Northeast Corridor. They're building a brand new bridge south of Newark, and they're also building a new tunnel as well, I believe in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, as well as around the New York area, to be able to allow for higher speeds and to also be able to make sure to provide a more continuous and on-time sort of a service. So hopefully they'll be able to do all that, because the Northeast Corridor is the moneymaker. They make the money for the whole of Amtrak. The rest of Amtrak loses the money, technically. So hopefully they're able to get all those infrastructure projects off the ground, and the Avelia Liberty ought to pretty much just be able to ensure that their high-speed service remains top class and isn't getting worn out like the Acela Express was. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that did address that the best I could, at least in my opinion. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Tom Exman.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Duncan VR, who puts in a $15 super chat. Thank you very much, Duncan, as well, for that support and also able to keep the channel running. He said, the marmot wants a cheeseburger. And why does the fly sound like Zelenskyy? Baba moo. The fly doesn't sound like Zelenskyy. The fly sounds like someone else. So the fly sounds like a failed YouTube channel. I smell the stench from here. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, hello there. Hey!
Oh, hello there. I could do it, but I would probably piss off the entire hotel. Oh, dear. I'm going to pass.
Aw, man, I do not sound like Zelenskyy. Aw, man. But beyond that, I do thank you for supporting. And that's a failed YouTuber. That's not Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is a totally different person, totally different voice. But I do have to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I hope that you enjoyed our little marmot right here, Duncan VR. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, really quickly, folks, the whole thing I was bringing up was to say that religion shouldn't be involved in any decisions. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to be bashing religion or supporting it. That's your own business, not the channel's business. We don't make official comments on that. I like to follow the American precedent that we leave that to the individual and not the entirety of the channel as a decision to make. So I would ask one more time, folks, that y'all respect that, because here before long, we're going to have to start getting a little bit more draconian with enforcing the rules, because the rules are the rules, and we're not going to let them break tonight. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to WS, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, WS, as well, for that support right there. And he said, hypothetical, if Israel and Turkey start a skirmish and an act of aggression by Israel occurs on Turkish territory, what happens if Turkey invokes Article 5, a NATO response or a U.S. response?
Technically, it actually could be a NATO armed response against the Israelis. So that's if Israel conducts the first action. If Turkey attacks them and then the Israelis respond, then that's when things are pretty much outside of Article 5 protections, because technically the Turks were the aggressors and they can't claim some sort of a defense at that point. They attacked the Israelis first. So they could try and invoke an Article 5, but it would be shot down by everyone in Europe. So technically, if the Israelis do attack them, NATO could invoke Article 5, but the United States could shoot it down, because an invocation of Article 5 requires the unanimous assent of all nations in NATO, which most likely would not happen. The United States would shoot it down, and then it would be up to the European states to figure out what they would do in response to that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I know. And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Da Wolfman, and Da Wolfman puts in a 10. He said, enjoy listening to you guys, and I try to catch as many streams as I can, and even with the help from their axis of goobers. How long do you think the Russians have before bankruptcy? And again, LSA and on Wisconsin.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support to Wolfman. And I would say that the Russians still have most likely about 2 years or a year and a half left at this point, because the pipeline will not be built tomorrow, and it'll be built in about 3 years' time, completed by then, and that'll just be too late. So economically, right now, they're still up the creek without a paddle, and economically, that means they'll most likely survive only for the next year and a half to 2 years, still, in my opinion. So a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Fred Zerzal said, you're running away from Alabama and Space Command's moving there. Honestly, I could care less if Space Command was moving to Huntsville, to be honest with you. There's already a ton of defense assets in Huntsville. If people don't know this, but Huntsville is like the home to not only the Redstone Arsenal, but also private defense companies galore up there. So it's already had pretty major assets. I think the FBI headquarters is moving there as well. So it's heavily covered with assets like that. So now that's getting the Space Force Command, that's no different to me, like from the rest of it. So nothing crazy. And also it doesn't affect me. Like, I'm not in the Space Force, so it moving here really doesn't change much for us.
Also, on top of that, it's not like a lot of the commands are like really sensible locations, because the whole command for the Middle East, which is U.S. CENTCOM, is headquartered out of Tampa, Florida. So it's not really like the geography of them really matters too much, because that's in Tampa, and U.S. Southcom's in Miami, and then U.S. UCOM is in Stuttgart, along with AFRICOM, which isn't even in Africa or anywhere near Africa, and then also U.S. Indo-PACOM is all the way out in Honolulu and Hawaii. So none of it really makes a lot of sense. So if U.S. Spacecom moves to Huntsville, like as far as geography's sake, it doesn't really matter. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least in my opinion, about the whole Spacecom, UCOM, Spacecom, Northcom thing, all that. Because up until now, it was based at Peterson Space Force Base, along with Northcom Command, which is also at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs. Now it's just moving to Huntsville, to the Redstone Arsenal. Not really that big of a difference, honestly. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $7 support from Winnell Rose. And it said, absolutely, you're 100% right. I saw Andrew B. talk about this, and he's ex-CIA. And he says Israel takes the bullets for us. They're like a wall for us.
Who the hell's that guy? Who's that
guy? Oh, you don't know who that is?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, he's a former CIA officer. Former.
He's got the same name as me.
No, he doesn't have the same name as you. His last name's a lot different.
Oh, okay.
It sounds. I'm not really sure where the last name comes from, to be honest with you. Kind of an interesting choice of last name, but I don't know. I've got nothing against the guy, by the way. Just to make that clear, I'm not trying to like throw shade at him or something, but you know. I don't know. Some of the analysis has me turning my head sometimes on certain things. Yes, Israel is our ally, but at the same time, though, Israel's not perfect. And I think most people that are very, I guess you say non-biased are aware that they're not perfect, but some people maybe aren't. But once again, I got nothing against the guys. Want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not trying to start a beef or anything like that. So just to make that clear, that's just my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, I actually don't know the guy. I was kind of shocked to hear you say Andrew B, because technically that's me, like usually to most folks that actually personally know me. But beyond that, I would have to say, that's an interesting sort of an opinion on that. I would say that works like half the time. like sometimes the Israelis take the shots for us. Other half of the time, we're taking shots for them in a way. So I would say it's more so a mutual relationship in that extent, more so than a one-sided thing. But still, I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know what an honest person, I'm not saying the guy's dishonest, by the way. I'm just saying if someone's giving you the entire story, they'll also tell you that that Israel is classified as a critical counterintelligence threat. Yes, they are America's ally. Yes, I know that, but they're also a massive counterintelligence threat. Mossad is one of the most powerful intelligence organizations on the planet. They have resources that rival ours when it comes to like the CIA versus Mossad, where they're rivals, like they're on the same page. And in the Middle East, Mossad is king in the Middle East. They even outdo the CIA. So, I don't know. Like it's like a double-edged sword with Israel sometimes. Yes, we support them as it's in America's interest, but at the same time, though, you got to keep a close eye to make sure that they're not getting out of control, because they can get out of control quick, and they've known that for a long time. So that's just my side of it. But getting on to our next one here. This one goes to Plastic Pinocchio, who puts in a 5. He said, "This is the only propaganda that I approve of."
And thank you so much for the support, Plastic Pinocchio, and I thank you for enjoying our specific variety of propaganda, which, like every other type of propaganda, we call ourselves the truth. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bradley Burdett, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Bradley, for the support. And he said, "Howdy, LSA."
Hey, and hello to the LSA, and a big hello to Bradley. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Zach, who puts in a 5. And Zach said, "Does Venezuela just need some Milo's sweet tea?"
Maybe. I mean, maybe they just need to chill out. Milo Sweet Tea is pretty decent, actually. So maybe they do need that. Maybe they would make them see reality for a minute. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Kuchulian343. And Kuchulian said, "I knew we could count on European Texas, and Putin won't stop, though he's all in. Whatever it takes, he'll go down like the old Austrian painter did in Germany. Bitter, spiteful, and selfish, I agree."
And I thank you for the support. And I'd have to say that the European Texas, which is Poland, they stand strong. They're a great country. I respect them a lot. They take defense as seriously as the Lithuanians. Both of them are pretty much the forefront of European defense at the moment, crazily enough, although Lithuania is a smaller country. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to David Lawson, and he said, LLT, LOC. And thank you very much, good sir, David Lawson, for that support. And I do agree with you. LLT, long live the Leaf Spring Army. And also, we have a 5 from CK Bold, who said, take a live chat question, ton. And I'm not sure what the ton part's about, but we shall take a live chat question, CK Bold. And thank you very much for that support. I think the autocorrect got you there. But the live chat question goes to none other than Charm, who said, wow, the Chinese Victory Day parade is something else. You guys gonna touch on it?
Probably not. I'm not really a big one for covering parades. Like, beyond them showing off the weaponry, the parades are the same every year. And, you know, beyond listening to their patriotic music, which I've heard about a million times, and seeing them march in formation, which is nothing impressive once you've seen it for about 50 parades in a row, I don't really care to cover them too much. I talk about them in post, really, after they're done. Then I go, okay, here's everything that we saw that was of note, throwing out everything else. It's not important, and that's that. That's how I cover them, honestly. But I hope that does address that live chat the best I can, and a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, CK Bold. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have one from Kachulian343 once again. He puts in a 5 once more, and he says, I think China's playing the long game with Russia. They want to see them collapse just enough to turn them into a debt slave, like their Belt and Road vassals.
Oh, absolutely. Like, that's what the Chinese do. They're very exploitative that way. And so I would definitely agree with you on that. And so I thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have another one from Kachulian, and he said, I think they want Russia to be desperate enough to give over the disputed land and then become economically dependent on the CCP.
Oh, I definitely agree with you again, Julian 343. I think that that would definitely be the case. But at the same time, though, there isn't really a lot of disputed land. It's really just the islands in the Amur River. Beyond that, there's not really much more to get. But at that point, the Russians would hand it over to keep in China's good economic graces. I would agree with that. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from 535 Medic, and he said, so is China waiting on for Russia to be at its weakest so they can take eastern Siberia because they know nobody out there will do squat to help Russia?
No. China doesn't have any territorial ambitions within eastern Siberia, and to take ground these days, you have to come up with a land claim. That's generally how it's always worked through history, and they don't have any actual land claims that they've made on eastern Siberia, and most likely never will. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to NK Production, who puts in a 5. And he said, North Korea production exclusive. Kim's new suit, loaner from Xi's closet, and return pending after ceremonial selfies with the entire Politburo.
Honestly, it looks weird to see the fat dude in the suit. Like, it looks wrong. He looks like he ought to be wearing the Mandarin collar like normal. But he's out there in Beijing.
I don't like that Mandarin collar. I don't like it. It looks so wrong. Like, it looks, I don't know, he's like trying to be a cartoon villain or something when he's wearing that.
You know, I'll be honest with you, man. The only time I've ever seen a Mandarin collar work was on U.S. military uniforms around the First World War. Let me see if I can see that Mandarin collar right there. I mean, that looks fine, but beyond that, it looks horrendous, like downright terrible in any sort of a formal wear. Like, that's good. Like, that's the Enforcer logo's uniform, but I would think that's the only Mandarin collar that actually does work. That and the one that the Marines use in U.S. Marines dress uniform. Here we go. This is also a Mandarin collar, technically, and I think that looks pretty decent. But on those, like, Mandarin collared outfits that Xi and Kim wear, I mean, they're terrible.
They're communist collared.
Yeah, these are great. Also, by the way, folks, a little history fact about the Marines. The reason why they're called leathernecks is because during the Barbary Wars, which was one of the first real wars that the Marines fought after the Revolutionary War, Barber pirates had a thing of taking their cutlass and pretty much slashing it at the Marines' necks. So what they would do is that under a collar like that, or just generally around their neck, they would put a leather strap around it. It's pretty uncomfortable. But beyond that, it would stop you from getting your neck chopped off from a cutlass. So that's why they ended up getting the nickname the Leathernecks, is because they had literal leather around their neck. So a little interesting story for all of you out there. A little fun fact about one of the Marines' nicknames. But anyways.
I know some guys who used to peel out corners in old cutlass.
Man, that was a good one. Honestly, bro, I was like, I didn't expect that one. But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
But moving on to our next one here, this one goes to Tyler Harris, who puts in the 5. He said, the war between the U.S. and Venezuela will probably break out while the stream's offline next week. I'll wait for your vid to drop. Rip mainstream media.
And I thank you so much for the support, and hopefully it doesn't, because I would like to be live doing that, but I think it would most likely have to be a video, because I would have no way to be getting on a stream.
Man, I could go live.
Man, but shouldn't we do streams together, Toad and Frog together again?
Yeah, I mean, but it's the difference between missing it or not doing one at all.
Well, I mean, we could do a video.
I mean, we could, but that's not the same as live coverage.
Yeah, but like maybe not. Who knows? We'll have to see. I don't think it's going to happen though, within that time frame, but we'll see. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wendell Rose once again, who puts in a 7, who said, what do you think about the military intelligence USA gets from Israel, considering they're always at war and they must have a ton of data and statistics?
I'd tell you that some of the military intelligence is good. Sometimes, though, it seems to be a little bit misleading. So I'd say it's kind of like a hit and a miss sort of a thing, really. But I do thank you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Secret Systems, who puts in a 5. And sadly, on this one, Secret Systems, I'm going to have to skip on reading it because I'll be honest with you, the talk earlier about the religious stuff, it sent people off the cliff.
Yeah.
And every time we addressed it, it kept sending people off the cliff. So sadly, I'm going to have to skip it. But thank you very much, Secret Systems, for that support, and we do appreciate that. And we also have a 5 from Talon, and they said in a briefing by Russia v. Gerasimov, a map depicted Odessa to Moldova as Russian territory. And do you think Russia's tries an offensive Odessa before coming to the talk?
I would doubt it because they really can't cross the Dnipro River. As a matter of fact, both sides can't. So I would doubt it. So I do thank you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Michael Sperling, who says, is a blockade a military operation or not?
Technically it's a military operation. Like that's pretty much an act of war to conduct a blockade on someone. But in this case, it's pretty much an act of war. That's the best way to explain it. Pretty much might as well be an act of war. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Valen Jimin, and thank you, Valen, for that support. We also have a 2 from Quinto Jaron, as well as Mark-Andre Burnett, and thank all 3 of you for that support, Mark, Quinto Jaron, and Valen, for once again supporting the channel. And we also have a 2 from Jay of the Decline, who said 100% truly mad.
And I got to thank you for support, Jay of the Decline, and that's interesting to hear. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have another 2 from Jay of the Decline. He said, it's called a bluff, Matt. Come on, China and Russia. Nah, it's not bluffing, my friend. It's not bluffing. They're actually unifying in an Axis powers over there. China and Russia, Iran and North Korea, they are actually unifying. It's not a bluff. It's not a joke. They are actually doing it. And the fact that you put their hatred aside, because obviously they have some underlying hatred against each other, that shows you how dedicated they are to making that alliance happen. So that is highly concerning. I don't think that's a bluff whatsoever. I think it's 100% real. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to generally agree with that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Cowboy Up Texas, who said Venezuela has rare tech minerals.
And I would have to say that's true to an extent. I don't know how much, but I have heard that before in some prior statements about Venezuela. And so a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from Show Nuff Jr., who said Modi on the bench right now until the starters tag him in.
Honestly, that actually might be what's going on right now, Show Enough Jr. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Burnaby Alex, who puts in a 2. He said, I'm Googling best neighborhood in Salt Lake City. Oh, yeah, really? Are you, by the way? We couldn't afford the best neighborhood in Salt Lake City,
Oh,
so
yeah.
whichever one that is, I guarantee that's not the one we're in. So you can probably do process of elimination, maybe, but we won't be able to find it using that, though. I can promise you that. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, some like I'll be honest with you. I always find it laughable because every once in a while someone says something like "Shut the f up, you make 15 grand a night," like we're Seinfeld or something like that. It's like we make nowhere close to that. Like generally, what we make is quite small compared to what a lot of people would believe we would. So we certainly cannot afford the nicest neighborhood in Salt Lake City. We couldn't even afford the nicest neighborhood here in Alabama. So, well, actually, funnily enough, everything seems to be cheaper in Salt Lake City than it is here in Birmingham. So that was a little weird too. I was like, "Huh, that's crazy. Didn't expect that one." That wasn't expected, but okay. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Wendell Rose once again, who puts in a 2 and said, Constitution is influence. Oh, man, I don't want to read this one either. I'll be honest with you. You're going to start the storm right again.
boy.
But thank you very much, Wendell Rose, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And sorry I can't read it, by the way. It's not because it's like something horrible. It's just I don't want to send the chat into a tizzy once again. But jumping to our next one, this one goes to Jared, who puts in a 2. They said, do you think the U.S. might take out Maduro?
I would say that it's a possibility at some point in the future we most likely will, because we've started to make him pretty much public enemy #1 here in America for now. So I do thank you for support. I hope that does address that well, Jared. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dubstep801. And thank you very much, Dubstep, for that $1 support as well. And we do appreciate that very much also. And Dubstep, you're going to be bringing us right into our live chat questions proper. And a big thanks to you for that support once again. And we are now jumping into our Morse code decoders of the night. And tonight we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airbug Arbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Copioteryx, and Sire. And it said the Morse says Venezuela is oddly silent after the strike occurred today on their shores. And LOT,
And and that is the sound of money. And y'all got that done on the nail. That's the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all greatly for getting that correct time and time again, because y'all continue to show that the Lee Springer Signal Corps is able to get things correct continuously without delay. And so a big congratulations to y'all once again. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the live chat questions. And of course, we are going to be getting as many of them as we can. But I think tonight, though, actually, we're only going to get about 5 of them, because Enforcer Matt's got to get up early tomorrow and wander around and do some things. So I'm going to only get a few of them so that way he can round it out, get to sleep, and then we can get on to doing everything that we need to do tomorrow. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we do have one more super chat that came in, this time from Dunkle X. And thank you, Dunkle, as well, for that support. He said, adieux, avieu, JK, take one from the chat.
And I thank you for the support, Dunkle X. And as a matter of fact, we actually were going to take one from the chat. You're actually segueing us right back into the live chat question segment. So a massive thanks to you once again for support. And Matthew, what live chat do we have in honor of Dunkle X?
So starting off with our first live chat question, this one is going to go to AF Kaplan. He said, do you think other NATO countries will follow Poland's example and arrange for major war games?
I would hope so, but they will most likely have to be...
Lithuania is.
Huh?
Remember, Lithuania is. They're doing one. They're doing one right now, I think.
I think it's Iron Defender or something like that. Oh, hang on, hold up. Let me check that. That's Poland's. What is Lithuania's? It's Iron something. It's not Iron Wolf, because that's the brigade. It's something else, but similarly named. But actually...
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how I bring up that guy who said they have that iron in them? All of a sudden, all these exercises pop up with iron in the title.
Man, whoever governs the Suwalki Gap must have that iron in them. And bro, they put it in
definitely
there.
Not the Russians.
Man, definitely not. Bro, they got that bronze in them. Like, man, they ain't doing too well. But I think, let's see. As far as other countries joining Poland, I would think that they would have to make it a multinational exercise, because the Germans conducting the exercise in Germany wouldn't really have a lot of a strategic effect on the Zapad. So they'd have to make it a multinational effort in Poland to really have any kind of effect. The Lithuanians are conducting an exercise at the moment and will be conducting one during the Zapad. So right now it's just Poland and Lithuania, but I would hope that other countries would join. So I hope that does address that live chat the best I can. A big thanks to you once again, Dunkle X, for sponsoring a live chat. And with that, we are on to the fourth to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Wow Factor, who said, Matt, does this mean war? And I ask because Venezuela is backed by China, Russia, North Korea, and more. And if you're asking me, I don't think any of those countries that you mentioned are going to come to the aid of Venezuela. They may send indirect support, kind of like we're doing with Ukraine, but they're not going to put boots on the ground in Venezuela to save Maduro. I can promise you that. The only thing that might happen is it might worsen the tensions that are already in place between the U.S. and the Axis powers, but it's not going to lead to us fighting with China, Russia, North Korea, or anything like that. If anything leads to that, it's going to be something happening with Ukraine, the Baltics, a NATO country, or something like that. It's going to lead to a war between the major powers, but not Venezuela. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say none of them are coming to the Venezuela's aid. None of them have the power projection abilities to even really make it over here, and nobody really wants to deal with that kind of an issue. That could have a lot of economic and militaristic fallout that they wouldn't really like. So I would generally say that, in my opinion, the Venezuelans are on their own right now, and I think they know that as well. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Ms. Disa, who said the U.S. Space Command is moving to Alabama's Rocket City in Huntsville. And what are y'all's thoughts? My thoughts is this. It's some people are saying it's political, and yes, I can see how it could be political. But also at the same time, though, like I mentioned earlier, it is known as Rocket City. Huntsville is because it has a lot of private contractors. It has the Redstone Arsenal, it has the FBI building there now. So it's a logical place to put it. But here's my thing, though, just from a logistical and also a common sense standpoint, why do we want to put so many important headquarters in one city? Like if it gets hit by a nuke, or if something happens in like a world war and they try to target Huntsville, now we're going to have all of our headquarters and FBI, private contractors, Redstone Arsenal, all these places are going to get taken out in one attack. So it's like, do we really want everything in one spot, or do we want to keep it separated?
I would say, honestly, it doesn't really matter all too much to me. I mean, if you look at all of them in the world and where they're at, wait, did that move? Okay, it didn't. Thank the Lord. About messed up this whole map. Let me just make sure that it didn't. Okay, so it did move. Anyways, I would generally say that it's fine to me. It doesn't really matter. Some people are making it out to be a mountain out of a molehill. The headquarters moving from place to place doesn't even matter. Northcom right now is in the middle of Colorado Springs. What sense does that make? None. But is it there? Yeah, and it's been there for a while. CENTCOM is in Tampa. What kind of sense does that make? It doesn't make any. Like, why in the world is the command for the Middle East in Tampa, Florida? It doesn't make any sense at all. And Southcom's in Miami. Like when you look at them all, a lot of them don't really make all too much sense. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it's just a place for these people to have an office at. So, people can get all up in a tizzy about it. And on top of that, another thing that I don't think a lot of people are getting is that if they move the headquarters of Spacecom to Huntsville, it's just the command staff that's moving. It's not like they're moving, and it's literally the highest level command staff, which is a very small element in Space Command. So, in the Space Force in general, or any U.S. Space Forces as a whole, in all branches, it's a very minuscule amount of command forces that are moving there. It's not like they're saying, okay, we're moving the whole Space Force to Huntsville. It's just the command staff. I can show you all the building they're in right now in Colorado Springs. It's right here. That is U.S. Army Space Command, Space Operations Center, and U.S. Army Space and Missile Defense Center. This is the building that they actually take up. It's this one right here. It's not that big. Moving that to Huntsville is not a big deal. It's a small command staff. It's wildly small, and it's just an administrative thing. It doesn't really mean much. So, and also,
I wonder how the staff feels about that, like moving Alabama to Huntsville. Honestly, from Colorado Springs, I'd probably be a little upset.
Honestly, man, I know a lot of people in Colorado Springs who are in the service, and they don't really like it that much.
Yeah, but compared to Huntsville, I mean, Huntsville's not like out of all the places in Alabama, Huntsville's probably the nicest in my personal opinion. But at the same time, though, I personally wouldn't choose to live in Huntsville. Just me personally, there's not much to do there. Also, they are building the hell out of Huntsville right now. They're building like those cheap houses galore up there that have a huge price tag on them, but they're built really cheap. The whole place is full of them now. Like, and people are complaining like hell about that in Huntsville, about how they're polluting the whole landscape with these cheap homes. And I don't know, they're doing that because they need to support the population that's moving there, because so many people are moving there for work, and now more people are going to be moving there for the Space Force Command moving to Huntsville. That's why they're doing it.
I mean, maybe, but also I gotta say, folks, the stuff like the stuff about, like, I just saw they're taking it from a Democrat state to give the Republicans jobs. That's not how it works. These people who are in Space Force Command are in the military. They're in the Department of Defense. They're getting paid no matter where they go, and it's the same people getting paid. They're in the same position. The support staff that supports U.S. Space Command in Colorado Springs right now will still be there. The DFAC is still there. The pay office is still there. Everyone who's already at Peterson is there. They stay there. The only people who are changing their location are the actual commanders in Space Command operations. That's it. And all of the little enlisted staff that help them out. That's it. There's not a lot of them. They moved to Huntsville. They're all still getting paid. So there's literally no difference. Like, if you're saying that Colorado's losing a tax base, they're losing like maybe a couple of tens of thousands of dollars in the tax base by these people moving, and that's it. Because they just get moved to Redstone Arsenal, and they get access to that pay office, that DFAC, so on and so forth. There's no change. Like people who are making this into a huge deal and are like, this is the apocalypse happening. It makes no sense. On top of that, if we're going off of the whole political thing, Florida leans more so to the right, and they have CENTCOM and SOUTHCOM inside of Florida, and nobody bats an eye. So now that U.S. Spacecom's just happening to move to Huntsville, now everyone's going to act like it's the end of the world. Like, these command headquarters, it does not matter where they are, and they have no impact on anything, rather than the headquarters for this place is here. And that's it. That's the only difference. It's nothing even worth talking about, honestly. Also on top of that, it's like people making a big deal out of anything these days. Everything becomes a massive ordeal. This is literally one of the smallest things I've ever seen. Like, it's not even really worth talking about, to the point I really don't even have an opinion on it. It's like, is it good? Is it bad? No, it's just a thing that's happening. That's it. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Echo, and Echo said, do you know how long until Zapad 2025 starts? And Echo, all we know about Zapad right now is it's going to take place this month, the month of September. We're not told the exact dates. The Russians are keeping that very close to the vest for some reason. It's kind of weird considering it's a military exercise, but they're keeping that very close to the vest. So we're assuming, or at least I'm assuming, mid-September is generally when I'm expecting it to take place. But the Polish are conducting their military operation the entire month of September, just in case it starts at a different time. So, Enforcer, what say you?
We don't really know exactly. We have heard that it's apparently going to be early September, sometime within the first 2 weeks. But it could also be later September as well. We're not entirely sure. It could be the whole month of September. So we don't know the exact day, but it seems that a lot of people are starting to lean towards the idea it's probably going to be in the first 2 weeks of the month of September. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was lucky last person that threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be JMP Traveler. And also, Uncle Sam said in the live chat, real quick before I get to that one, he said it could be September the 11th. Honestly, that's, I know you meant that kind of facetiously, but at the same time, though, that could be the day they try to do that, that's launch that exercise, just because the Russians do petty crap like that they might actually do that. So we'll have to see. But jumping into our last one here from JMP Traveler, he said, if Putin falls, wouldn't the other federations break away from Russia? And when Moscow is down, what's the best time for non-Europe Russia to break away?
Honestly, I don't really think Russia is going to fracture that much. I think some of the Caucasus oblasts could break away in the semi-autonomous republics, but the rest of Russia breaking away? No. Russia actually, Siberia makes no money for the larger part. They actually are a money sink for the Russians, and that's also why they don't really like to put money out there, because it doesn't really create a return that much. Siberia is generally useless in every way, so I don't really think that they would want to break away from Russia, because they would be kind of screwing themselves over to an extent. And also, on top of that, a lot of the people who live in Siberia these days are actually ethnically Russian, at least within the major cities, which is where you would find the actual power centers, which usually are in cities, and so they wouldn't really want to break away. And I haven't really heard of a lot of separatist movements going on inside of Siberia to make that happen. So a fracturing of Russia, if the Putin government collapsed, would be incredibly small, and most likely only around the country of Georgia and Azerbaijan. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. We reached a peak viewership of 17.4 thousand people, and 185,000 people have watched this stream up till this point. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had each and every single one of y'all here tonight, and of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And if there is enough news to cover tomorrow, I will be the one making the short war video. That's right, 2 days of the Enforcer. Actually, it's going to be 3, making the short war videos. And so with that, we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Least Spring Army, and the Least Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And a huge shout out to the almost 200,000 people that were here by the end of the stream, which is absolutely insane, by the way. We're very glad that almost 200,000 of you chose to watch the channel for your news tonight. And we hope you do so again tomorrow night on Wednesday, because I'm sure there'll be crazy news happening tomorrow as well. But with that, in the meantime, I'm going to get back to house hunting here in Salt Lake City and try to get that done tomorrow. So we will see you all when we get back, of course, and I'll be hopefully back to making videos when I get back as well. If everything goes according to plan, the plane turbulence doesn't get too bad. But anyways, thank you all once again, and Slava Ukraine. Here on Slava. Get some rest, and good night.